This episode originally aired on October 7th, 2022 on the Unethical Patreon. Our client today is Justin Wood from the podcast called Employee Number One, the Industrial Accident Podcast. I was on there once. Go check it out.
Can you just quick sing It Wasn't Me by Shaggy? Do you know that song?
I would be more than happy to do that for you if you hadn't just consumed peanut butter on a hot dog.
All right, guys, you might remember me. I'm Richard's cousin. I don't know if you know what happened, but he shit the bed.
No, not again.
He does that all the time. But...
No, he's tits up, done, toast,
Okay.
cashed it in. And I was going through some of his stuff. He told me to burn a bunch of shit that was under his mattress before his wife got home. And I found his last will and testament. And evidently he was hoping before he passed away to solve the mystery of Jack the Ripper.
Ooh.
I'm going to let the ghost of Richard take it from here.
Oh.
Oh, Richard's dead?
Oh, shit. Richard's dead?
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm right here.
Oh, psych.
Oh, fuck. Dude, you don't know how much shit I almost just sold.
You can't sell my subscription to Men's Health magazine.
I'm aware it's 7 years old. That's not what I'm talking about, though. Just like this furniture and shit in here. Anything I can do.
Okay, well, here's $30. I'm faking my death. Fucking someone tried to kill me. So, guys, here's some money. Can you get me some groceries?
Oh, fuck. Hey, Rick, come here. Richard just gave us $10. I'll split it with you.
Oh, man. I hate to do this to you guys, but I really got to take a shit.
God damn it, Justin. If you take a shit like you did at Auntie Gretchen's house that stank up the whole, I swear to God, I'm going to be pissed.
Is she still passing that around as the fruitcake?
Yeah, oh, God damn it. I hate you so much. Go take your shit. I'm going to get started without you.
An elite team of private detectives.
What if balloons are aliens? Maybe that's the key component we're missing.
Cover-ups.
John's guilty.
Mysteries that need to be solved.
Maybe Mormons need mountains.
Richard, shut up.
I started reading about something way more brutal than I ever thought. I always knew it was brutal, but I never knew it was this bad. So it's going to be I don't know if a warning should be issued because this one's fucking nasty. It's a bad one. But yes, gross. I don't know if it's grosser than Black Dahlia, because that was pretty gross one too.
That was a lot grosser than I thought it would be.
Yeah, or OJ. OJ was pretty gross. We almost
OJ
made
one,
Rick
yeah.
puke.
You think this one's gonna be that bad?
Oh yeah, pal. We're gonna see some chewed up peanut butter and ketchup hot dog in no time. he's like
he got a garbage bag closer. That's cool. But it's something I wanted to cover since I started this show because it's my favorite of the unsolved murder thing, serial killers. I don't know what it is anymore. I've read too much about it now. So like I'm in this, whatever it is, it used to be my favorite. Now it's crazier than I ever thought. We're going to cover Jack the Ripper today. The Whitechapel murders.
Cool. Should we do like a thing like we do like a trigger warning, but like cool? So we'll do like a shotgun racking. Yeah, like we'll just do like trigger warning. Trigger warning.
That was really fucking intense.
Oh man, perfect.
All right. So what this also means, though, is that we get to go back to the 1800s. We haven't done it in a while. I used to do it almost every other fucking episode. We haven't gone to the 1800s. This time we're going to London, 1888. So from August 7th to September 10th, 1888, Jack the Ripper was stalking the streets of London, killing and mutilating at least 5 sex workers in the middle of the night on the street, most of them. This case is mysterious in every aspect. Like even the so-called facts of the case have been scrutinized and torn apart as lies. Recently enough, it's been suggested that most of the canonical victims probably weren't even sex workers. That's one of the biggest facts about Jack the Ripper. Jack killed prostitutes. Their words, not mine, sex workers, whatever. So in a new book in 2019, Hallie Rubenhold, a British social historian and author of the book, The Five, The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper, suggests that 3 out of 5 of the canon victims, because there's other victims that they suggest, but we'll get into that, weren't even sex workers. She said that they were just murdered because they were down on their luck, poor, and easy prey, homeless, basically. There's so many suspects in the past 130 years. It's considered one of the earliest serial killers, never been identified. This is probably the reason that this lives on in pop culture in our lives over 130 years later. So for those 9 weeks in 1888, Jack the Ripper roamed the district of Whitechapel, which is located in the East End of London. I don't know what you guys know about this. You guys know anything about this to begin with before I go get ripping here?
The one thing I do know is like every painting / picture I've seen of them trying to figure out who Jack the Ripper is, it's always white people. So props to England for not getting racist on this one, like every other serial killer or murderer out there first blaming someone else. So good on you guys.
I fail to believe like any of the propaganda. England doesn't have any black people, so
in 1888, maybe, I don't know, not many. You know?
Oh, come on.
Okay.
Come on.
No, it's like the birds thing and the Australia thing didn't happen. Not real.
Okay, can I tell you one thing, Rick? First of all, good job for trying to give them props for not blaming the black people.
Did they get racist on it?
Don't worry, they get really racist on it, just not with the black people.
I will say, though, around the 1750s, London became the home of many African people. It goes on to discriminate a lot. I'm just going to cut it off there.
Okay, good. Anyways,
Cool.
Don't worry. They don't get racist towards black people. It's others. We'll get there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, London was basically separated in two sides. The east side was really the poor side of London, and the west side was where all the rich people had. The east side was like, just during this time, Whitechapel, which was like kind of the middle of the east end of London, had a population of approximately 78,000 people. And over 6,000 of those people didn't know where they were going to sleep next. Homeless, basically. That's just Whitechapel. London had a population of 4.7 million people at the time. And about 70,000 of those people didn't know where they're going to be sleeping that night. So that's a shit ton of homeless people for a city. In Whitechapel, most of the jobs for men it was like a working class neighborhood. It had like lots of butcheries, lots of slaughterhouse jobs. Men were always covered in blood. Like they always had aprons on, covered in blood. It's just part of where it was. Lots of butcheries. People like, there was a slaughterhouse I read about that was like a cat slaughterhouse. That was run by a woman, but still, like, they're fucking eating cats. Yeah. Oh yeah. There's lots of butcheries. Let's just say that. Lots of people covered in blood.
Cool.
Different. The main job of the time for women was sex worker, and not out of like want. It's more of a necessity. They just nowhere else to work.
Well, yeah, they filled up all the slots at the cat butcher, so
yeah.
You know, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, even at the cat butcher was run by a woman, but the butcheries just wouldn't hire the women. They're too frail. They got kids. There's bad things that's just women didn't have the same opportunity, you know?
Which is crazy because I feel like butchering an animal, like no matter how horrible that is, it can't be worse than sleeping with a man in the 1800s. That's got to be the most disgusting thing that you would have to do. I mean, like, I don't think any amount of money would get me to agree to that.
They don't have the same standards as we do, though. Everyone was disgusting.
Yeah, but like, I feel like I have this image of a man in like, I don't know, what year was it?
1888.
1888. Okay, so like, yeah, so that's like Industrial Revolution and shit. So like, not only is he like filthy and unbathed and his teeth are like fucking brown and shit, but he's covered in smog. It's a thick layer of smog.
Yeah, that's one of the things too.
Just like he's humping you and like dust clouds are coming off of him.
Yeah, if they even had clothes. Some people are so poor they couldn't even afford clothing and shit. Like their kids be walking around, no shoes, just naked. Couldn't afford anything for them. So there'd just be a layer of disgusting. And no one had showers, you know what I mean? You'd have to figure out a way to shower, jump in the, I guess, ocean if you could make it there. Ugh.
Did they still drink booze because they had no potable water?
Yes. And booze was very rapid. Whitechapel was like probably the worst neighborhood in London at the time. Highest crime rate in the country. Fights and stabbings basically every day. People were drunk, beating their wives on the streets in front of everyone. A common phrase yelled in Whitechapel at the time would be murder. Like if you got beat up or something,
yeah,
it just murder. And then that would be, so people didn't even listen to like cries of murder. That's how shitty of a place this was.
So maybe like Jack the Ripper was an angel of mercy because he was just like, you're too good. You shouldn't have to live in a time like this.
Somebody from the future who's
Then-
just so disgusted with these people's poor lives. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he's just like, I feel so sorry for you. I'm just gonna quickly remove your head.
Yeah, Jack the Ripper. Maybe there's
That-
a theory one already on the table. An angel
Cool.
of an angel helping. I'm just helping, Slice. Yeah, it had the highest poverty and homelessness rate in London. I might get this part. I'm going to tell you this whole thing, actually. I'm going to probably get a lot of this fucked up. There's so much of this shit. I just did the best I could with what I can. So I'm trying to explain a couple things here. Maybe I'm wrong. Early 1800s, I guess the 1830s sometime, they like passed a law called the Poor Act in London.
Why do I feel like that doesn't do anything good for poor people?
Well, it was actually born out of like there's lots of poor people. Let's try to help, I guess. But like this is like a aristocratic version of helping. It's not like I think they had the intention of helping, but it's not helping. You guys are douchebags. So what they would do is they made a act where like we'll give you these houses and clothes and food. You have to just come. You have to live in these workhouses, and to get your food for the day and your whatever for the day, you would have to work it off. And like there's many different jobs.
Slavery. That was their
Yes.
solution to
Yeah.
poverty was slavery.
More like prison, because like you couldn't even. It's like slavery prison because you didn't have to go, but then you just don't get a house. So it's not prison either. It's not really slavery. It's just like indentured servitude, I guess. Like it's bad. It's not good. And the jobs weren't fun either. It's not like they had like like dance offs. Like we're gonna do dance today, guy. Like it was. A
Oh, I
shitty job.
bet they had some of that too. I bet there was. Well, they're slaves. They can do whatever they want with them.
Dance for me, slave. Maybe you didn't get
Yeah.
paid that day for that.
Yeah, exactly. Like I thank you for sewing all those shoes you can't afford today. Now, if there's just one more thing I could get you to do to work overtime, unpaid, of course, you're a slave. If you could just have a dance off with John Wellingsmith over here,
Maybe like
and whoever does better gets the moldy bread tonight.
these guys would be fucking just pumped to get that job, dude. Imagine that would have the shit they had to do is like crush rocks, make gravel, like
Make a gravel?
yeah, take a giant boulder and crush it down to gravel sized. Shit
Oh my
job.
god.
Yeah.
Dude, I would be begging for death. I would be begging for Jack the Ripper to come for me.
Yeah, exactly. That's one job. I'm not even giving them the worst ones yet. There's untying. They get all these old ropes from the ocean, like from old ships, and they'd have to like untie the ropes, and apparently just rip your fucking fingers apart because you're just pulling on twine all day.
Good news then, though. Readily available rope to hang yourself with.
Yeah, exactly.
I bet that was a highly sought after position in the workhouse.
There's another one that I saw where one of the jobs was crushing bone to make fertilizer for like the fields. So they'd be like literally crushing bone, and they would feed them. So like they would get their food, but they'd still be hungry. They wouldn't get lots of food. So like some guys would love to take the bone crushing job so they can get the marrow out of the bones. So they could go like suck a fucking hunk of marrow out of a bone that's been sitting there for weeks. That's how desperate they were.
And-
I want to be the bone crusher.
And you know for sure that that wasn't all animal bones.
There's people out there. I don't know how true that is, but there are rumors that they were doing grave digging and like taking human bones.
Yeah, I don't need any sources or proof. I know that there were people in that.
All of this sounds like a really expensive store on Etsy. Like there's someone out there that does all of this shit for fun.
Just the products they're making or the slavery too?
Honestly, yeah.
Because I feel like there's probably some definite sweatshop fronts on Etsy.
Mhm.
So okay, so those are the workhouses. So you get basically like put into slavery. And there are all sorts of different ones. And yeah, terrible fucking life. No thanks. Then there was these other things called boarding houses where you could like stay in a big room with a couple people. So you get like a couple families in one room. It would be probably like 12 pence, just enough like to make it expensive. A normal person couldn't just go there. You'd have to have a pretty good job to get there. Not amazing job, but you go there. Then they have these DOS houses, which maybe I'm getting all this mixed up, but then there's a third tier of houses that like cost like very cheap. So like, here's an example. For 1 pence, you could come into that house and sit on a bench, but not sleep. You could just sit on the bench all night, no sleeping. Okay. Another for 2 pence, I think it was, you could come and you sit on the bench and you can fall asleep, but only over a rope. So they put a rope in front of you and you'd get to like sleep frontwards over the rope. So like if you had like 2 pence left to come and sleep for the night, you get they think like where the term hangover comes from, you know.
I like
It sounds like a great value-added service.
Yeah, on a rope.
But also, like, how do they police who is and isn't sleeping? They just wake them up.
That's what I said.
Well, that's how you earn money to sleep. You're policing the people to not sleep.
Okay, cool. All right, that's where I was gonna go with it. Then I was trying to figure out like where the economy fits to have the waker upper job. If they're paying them, is that worth the amount of money they're making on the rope?
I don't know how much. I didn't get into the rope thing too much. I just thought it was funny. And then for 4 pence, you could get a bed, which was called a coffin bed. Basically, it was in a room with like a shit ton of other people, and it was literally a coffin, a wooden box you could sleep in. And it was nobody cleaned the shit. There's bugs crawling around. There's fucking rats everywhere. And if you didn't pay that night, you're not coming back. Like every night, you have to pay 4 pence. If you don't have your night, it's nightly, and you don't get to stay in the day either. You wake up in the morning, you get the fuck out.
Yeah, I would think that the coffin bed with the sanitary issues would definitely make the rope the prime menu item there.
It's half the price, less the bug.
Yeah.
So how much did they make? How much did you make a day working?
When you're at the workhouse,
bread. You made bread.
You made when you were at the workhouse, you got to sleep. They gave you food and you got clothing.
Oh, but okay, never mind. Gotcha. Following.
So that's why like a lot of the women would turn to prostitution, because like they had the workhouses, which they would let women work at the workhouses, and kids and men. They'd separate them all.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they'd
be very inclusive.
Yeah, they'd be. They're a very, very inclusive bunch. These old school Londoners. They'd be all separated though, because they literally said like, we don't want you guys to get any hanky panky in there. There's enough poor people in this room. Okay. We don't need any more poor kids. Thank you very much.
They were worried about people uncontrollably fucking the children.
No, they were. Yes. No, they're worried they're going to make more poor children. No more poor people.
Oh, you meant they separated the women from the men.
And the kids. And the kids from the men and the women. So they looked at the kids. Okay. Yeah. And they went, nuh-uh. No,
these kids are too hot. We got to remove them. Yeah. They're going to distract all the workers.
It's the 1800s. Are you 13 yet? No. All right. No. Yeah. So, and like I said, so the workhouses kind of sucked. The boarding houses were not good. They were cheap enough, but most people couldn't afford them. So the women would have to like turn trick at night to try and get a place to sleep sometimes. And like I said, some of these people, like Haley Rubenhold said, they probably weren't even prostitutes by the way they were described. So I will try and make those distinctions as I go through the victims throughout this.
How much money do you think you made sucking a filthy 1800 man's dick?
I think I was reading like sucking a D would probably be like 1 pence, 4 pence for a bang. So you could get out a bang and probably.
Okay. All right. So you get 2 nights on the rope or one bed, one coffin bed.
Yeah. One coffin bed. Yeah.
That's not too bad.
But I mean, at the same time, most of these people are alcoholics. That's the reason they're down there. So you'd have to make your booze first. You know, a lot of the time it's 3 or 4 to get your actual sleep, because otherwise you're just going to the bars. Everyone was hammered. Everyone was fighting. Everyone was stabbing each other. Everyone was robbing each other. It's a fucking shitty life. Dark night. There's no lamps everywhere. It's fucking darkness.
How much did a bottle of booze cost?
Nothing. Like a pence. Pence is like the lowest, like nothing. But you couldn't just buy a bottle of booze. You'd be out of the taverns drinking at the bars.
No, you couldn't just buy bottle. I mean, like, what if you're an addict? You had to go to a fucking bar?
Yeah, bars weren't closed.
That seems unfair. Everything else obviously above board, but that's the one unfair thing.
I'm just saying, maybe you could if you were rich. I imagine a bottle of booze would be a lot, but you couldn't get a bottle of booze in Whitechapel. I don't think you could buy. I think you're just buying the fucking swill at the tavern, you know, like the mead or whatever. It's not like that.
So what if I suck filthy old 1800s man's dick and he's drunk, so I let him piss in my mouth to get me drunk to save the money that I would spend on booze.
See, this is why you would never end up in a fucking workhouse, because you'd be doing the work. You know what I mean? You'd be thrifty.
Yeah, I'm gonna be like those Facebook hustlers, except in the 1800s.
The workhouse hustler is so weird reality show. Just a bunch of toothless fucking children. Like, I just wanted to be with my mommy and work smack. So yeah, there was also another thing that they called living hard. which you guys could probably imagine what that means.
I'm sorry, what was everything else?
Oh, yeah, exactly. This is not what living hard is to these people. There's even a worse one, which is called living hard, which is basically just sleeping in the dark fucking streets of the stabbiest place in London. Yeah, there's not a lot of options. So I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a setting of the time we're in and the place we're in. A lot of the neighborhoods or streets that I mentioned in this episode are all in Whitechapel. They're all in the Whitechapel district. They're all very close to each other. All the victims were killed by the Ripper within a 1 square mile of each other, or square 1.6 kilometers of each other. There are 5 murders that are considered canon, like I was saying earlier.
Canon? What is this? The MCU?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was like, Ripper canon. There's, it's true though. That's the ones that all the people agree on. There's 5 of them that are from the Ripper. There are 6 more that are considered non-canonical.
Well, I'm ready for the Jack the Ripper lore.
But sometimes are attributed to Jack the Ripper in some fashion. I'm going to tell you my opinions on those ones early on. I'm not going to go with the 5 until later when I get to the suspects. I'll just tell you the ones that I think might be the Ripper, the ones that I don't think are the Ripper, with the 6 extra ones. They have a different timeline too. So if I said September to November 1880, actually there's a couple murders that happened a couple months before, and a couple murders that happened actually a couple of years after that are kind of lumped in with them. So I'm just going to briefly talk about those ones, but the 5 major murders I'm definitely going to talk about a lot. When we were making fun of the whole Ripper lore, there is a whole group of true crime people that call themselves Ripperologists.
I fucking believe it.
It's all they do is study Jack the Ripper. There's like a Jack the Ripper magazine. I forget what it's called, like Ripper Monthly or some shit that just goes out to these Ripperologists. It's a whole fucking business. Jack the Ripper has employed many people over the years, even to this day.
What do you think one of those murder victims would say if they could hear someone saying they were non-canonical?
Yeah. It was my brother Jim. It wasn't even Jack the Ripper. Also, another thing that's kind of fucked up about these non-canonical things, or canonical ones even, is like many women were murdered in the East End of London at the time, plus it's the 19th century, so it's hard to figure out what murders would have definitely been linked. So even the 5 that are linked could possibly be not as well. All they have now is looking at shitty evidence from police from back in the day, shitty fucking media from back in the day, and speculation and like new age technology that's not even really that good if you can't trust the evidence that's getting thrown through it. Like there's DNA and shit like that, but like it's been 150 years. Who knows who's touched that fucking rag or whatever the fuck, right? That's why this is so fun. I'm just ready to give her. So there's 11 murders called the Whitechapel murders at the time. Ripper didn't even get named right away. The first murder, if we're to consider the non-canonical murders to be lumped in with the Ripper, is earlier in 1888, April 3rd. Emma Elizabeth Smith was found murdered on Osborne Street, Whitechapel, at approximately 1:30 a.m. She'd been bludgeoned in the face and she had a huge cut on her ear. Also, a blunt object was inserted into her vagina, rupturing her peritoneum, which is like the lining of the inner wall of the abdominal cavity.
Oh my God.
She clung to life until later that day when she eventually died at London Hospital from complications from the peritoneum rupture. In her few moments of lucidity before her eventual death.
Wait.
Yep.
Wait, let me guess. She was like, oh my God, is this what a bed feels like?
They didn't give her a bed. She was poor. She laid on the floor and died out. Who knows if she got a bed? I'm just saying they probably didn't go like, put the dirty in the back. Don't let her touch my instruments. In her few moments of lucidity before her eventual death, Smith told authorities that she'd been attacked by 3 men, one of them being a 19-year-old. Okay, that doesn't even sound like Jack the Ripper at all. It's 3 people who fucking gang raped and murdered a lady. The media of the time, after the Ripper was a known identity, because it's not even in the sphere of anything yet, later attributes Smith's death to the Ripper, but most people today just attributed her death to massive amounts of gang violence in the East End due to the massive amount of homelessness and poverty. I don't even know why people even consider this anymore. Like literally, she said it was 3 people. They didn't really give her the Ripper treatment. You'll see the Ripper treatment later, which is fucking scary. She just got murdered in a very brutal way.
Worse than that?
Oh, fuck yeah. Way worse. That's fucking child's play compared to Jack the Ripper.
So this lady had easy living. by all accounts.
Yeah.
She only had her abdominal wall ruptured and probably even got to sleep on a rope.
I'm not discounting that
Little bitch.
hers. I'm not discounting what she got was horrible, because it's fucking terrible. None of this, nobody deserves any of this. This is fucking absolutely trash. But for someone to go like this was Jack the Ripper, maybe. I doubt it. Maybe he had to, like, serial killers have like a escalation. Maybe that was his first kill and he just like, I need more, you know? I don't know. The next murder that's non-canonical is that of Martha Tebram. She was murdered in a staircase landing in George Yard on August 7th of 1888. She was stabbed a total of 39 times. The medical examiner found wounds on her throat, lungs, heart, liver, spleen, stomach, abdomen, breasts, and vagina. All the blows were from someone who was right-handed, and they were all made with a smaller blade, like a penknife. No motive was ever established for Tabram's murder, and with the savagery of the act itself, led the police at the time to believe this might have been committed by Jack the Ripper. Like I said, this is attributed to him after he's a known entity. Tabram's murder didn't follow the MO of Jack the Ripper, really. She was stabbed by a right-handed person. Jack the Ripper's a left-handed guy by most of the murders.
How are they able to decipher that?
I had a hard time understanding this too, but apparently, being right-handed, if you're going to cut someone's throat from behind, you will grab and cut like that, right? If you're left-handed, you're going to cut like that. So you can figure out where the wounds, so you're going to cut from the left-hand side or the right-hand side.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just the way the blade would have cut. I guess it makes sense. I had to like look at a video to understand. I was like, wait, what? But yes, it's just the way, if you come up from behind, you're going to slice someone's throat with, unless you're just Ambi, like who says you have to kill someone with your strong hand? Like, what if you're using that to like hold something?
What if it was like from the front with the left hand, but they did like a weird like move, like they like.
I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like,
them.
how can you know for sure? But I'm not a forensic scientist, and they all say this shit is this. So
yeah, Richard could easily kill anyone with either hand.
There's a few things that weren't follow the MO of the Jack the Ripper. The abdomen and throat slashes are considered part of the Jack the Ripper's MO. She was like stabbed a bunch. It wasn't like slashed open or cut and played with. Jack uses a long blade, 6 inches to 8 inches, not a penknife. Lefty, not righty. Maybe this was Jack even before he escalated. First kill, perhaps. Usually serial killer does a few practice kills before they figure out what they like. Maybe the later slashed throats were an escalation. Like maybe Jack didn't have a killing knife yet. And it was only after he got like a good killing knife that he was like, okay, cool. Now I didn't like that penknife, but I like this killing knife.
Yeah, and they do tell kids, like try everything so you know what you like.
Exactly.
And maybe he was like, cool, every knife. Oh.
Yeah. Maybe his left hand was busy. That's the other thing I was saying earlier. Maybe he fucking was holding something with his strong hand and used his left. Who knows? Anyway, so that one's not considered canon. A couple seconds, we'll get into the first real canon victim of Jack the Ripper. Oh, good. I'm glad you're back from your shit. Thanks, Justin. Fucking stunk up the whole goddamn office. Why did you have to leave at the beginning of that?
Well, I got one of those bidets for Christmas, and I finally put it on my toilet seat. It's one of those retroactive ass things, right? But it's cold water, and it comes out at like 1,200 psi. So now every time I fart, I sound like a duck because it split my asshole in half.
Why did you bring that to our office, Justin? Did you give us a bidet? That is very nice of you.
I thought I'd be the public asshole joining private dicks.
Perfect. Thanks, Justin, for being my only family besides Grandma who talks to me. I love you, cuz.
Word up, cuz. That rash ever go away?
Stop telling the guys about the rash. I told you.
Hey, what? Family reunion. What can I say?
So the first confirmed Ripper victim was a 43-year-old lady named Mary Ann Nichols. She was murdered 3 weeks after Martha Tebram. So that's why people link them together a lot. She was a 5'2", 43-year-old suspected sex worker with 4 of her front teeth missing. She went by the nickname Polly. I'm just going to call her Nichols because I've expressed my hate of this a lot in the show already. I don't like when people are using their nicknames like they're their buddies. Like, just call them by their fucking name. Polly and me. I mean, Polly got stabbed in the face. Dude, you didn't know Polly. I'm just going to call her Nichols. Let's talk about her a little bit. Before getting married in 1864 to a guy named William Nichols, she was Mary Ann Walker. They had 5 children together. Mary Ann Nichols was married to William for 16 years before the pair separated. She accused him of cheating on her, and he said that she was a drunk, and he only cheated on her after Mary Ann had left him. So he didn't cheat. She's a drunk. Mary Ann moved out, and William paid her 5 shillings a week as spousal support. This was law. If your wife ever left you, or you guys ever separated in the late 1800s, the church would enforce a law. The church enforced this, that you had to pay them 5 shillings a week. That was the minimum. Could be even more. So just for reference, when I'm talking about pence and shit like that, 1 shilling is 12 pence. So like 5 shillings, if it's a 4 pence coffin, and you get 5 shillings a week, it's pretty good math if you're not a drunk.
I'll see myself out.
So that brings me to a question then. Knowing that math, Justin, what would you charge to suck a filthy 1800 man's dick?
Do I still have my 4 front teeth at this point?
No.
Probably not. Probably not.
Well, that's as close as I've been to a toothbrush in a while, so I'd probably just give him a freebie.
Wow. Okay. All right.
So that's the difference between a dirty cocksucker and a dirty cocksucker.
Commas are everything, man.
Okay.
Nichols lived in workhouses, public lodgings, her father's house for a few months, and then homes of her various lovers. Not meaning her sex friends from getting paid. She would just like have boyfriends and just like stay there. She'd like latch on to dudes. A couple years later, in 1882, William stopped paying his spousal support because he claimed she was making a living as a lady of the night. Spousal support didn't have to be paid if a person getting the spousal support was earning money in illicit ways. Haley Rubenhall said like she disputes that Nichols is a sex worker. There's no evidence except for the husband didn't want to pay his support payments anymore. Like that's the evidence. People say, oh, she's a sex worker because he filed for divorce and didn't want to pay his spousal support. That's the only real evidence. The church, like I said, went to be the person like you have to, she went and told the church like he's not paying me. If she was a lady like she was, where she didn't really have a job and she was living in these public housings, society would just look at them like they were prostitutes. It doesn't matter if they're actually going out and doing like turning the tricks. So from what I gather, the church came to see William to make him pay his support, because that's what they would do, is send a priest to your house. But he convinced the priest that now his ex-wife abandoned him with his 4 children and was working as a sex worker. So she didn't have to pay the support anymore. She did leave the kids with him because she was a drunk. She was like a fucking addict, basically. She wasn't sucking dick. She was living off his 5 shillings he gave her every 2 weeks or every week.
She wasn't sucking dick. She was just a fucking addict.
Yeah. So they stopped paying. They said, sure, that whore left you. She's definitely, don't pay that money. So the church just agreed with them. Good job.
Man, that's cool. They had like church cops to go and like
Yeah, exactly. It's
investigate
right?
this stuff.
It's because a marriage
might
is like a
be-
church contract, right?
Yeah.
So like they'd have to have somebody to enforce these church contracts. And that's the fucking priest
Yeah.
would come like, I'm basically the church IRS. Let's do this. What do you got?
That'd be cool. Yeah, church cop. Like somebody doesn't show up for church on Sunday, you like go and arrest them, and then like bring them there, and then another time you catch somebody diddling a small boy, and you're like, nope, not happening.
Yeah, that happens far too often.
You know.
I mean, the Vatican City definitely has its own police service, so still church cops out there.
They're a country though.
It's like the Swiss Guard or whatever.
They hire, that's their army. The Swiss
Yeah.
Guard's like their army. They have like a police force though. The Swiss Guard has amazing outfits. I don't know if you guys have ever seen them. They're basically clowns. Like you look like fucking clowns.
Seen them in movies. Yeah.
So she was a fucking huge alcoholic. Like I said, she lost a bunch of her kids because of her alcoholism. She lost a bunch of jobs. She lost her husband. She spent whatever money she had earned on drink. If she didn't have enough money, she would stay in the DOS houses. She would just earn it that night. So maybe once in a blue moon, she might go suck a D to get into a bed.
Oh, she fancied some high rollers.
Street toothpaste.
Yeah. Damn.
Lots of times Nichols would just drink away her rent. So yeah, a lot of the time she just lived on the streets too.
Living hard.
Yeah, that's what they called it. The night before her murder on August 30th, 1888, Nichols was seen walking along Whitechapel Road around 11 p.m. She visited her favorite bar to get wrecked, like every night, named the Frying Pan Public House. She left early morning on August 31st at 12:30 a.m. and headed back to her lodging house. Nichols didn't have enough money to pay for the night, and she was kicked out around 1:20. She didn't seem to care. Nichols was hammered, and she was more concerned about how nice her new black rimmed bonnet looked. I have fancy new bonnet. Don't give a fuck about sleeping.
I'm done getting hammered. Will this hat help me get nailed?
I can't imagine it looked very good when it was probably like covered in like smog and shit and cum.
Brand
Like-
new. That's what people said. It was like brand new. That's why she was so happy with her brand new bonnet. It was brand new, so it didn't even have a chance to get fucked up yet.
No way.
No, as soon as you take it up,
Nothing was clean back then. I refuse to believe it.
even the clean
Like-
stuff was dirty.
Exactly. Yeah. They're like, wow, you got most of the blood out.
Oh boy.
So she left around 2:30 a.m. Nichols was seen by her friend from the lodging house, Emily Holland, barely able to walk down the street by herself.
See?
Nichols hammered. So Holland tried to convince Nichols to return to the lodging house with her, to which Nichols replied, "I've had my lodging money 3 times today and I've spent it. I'll just go make some more." Holland left Nichols and didn't seem concerned about getting her 4 pence for the room, and Holland left her on her way. This was the last time anyone saw Marianne Nichols alive. At 3:40 a.m., a cart driver named Charles Allen Lechmere, or Charles Cross, Lechmere was the name he was going by, finds Marianne Nichols slumped over near a locked stable gate on Bucks Row. When Lechmere saw her corpse from a distance, he thought it was a tarp in the middle of the road, a lumped up chunk of tarpaulin. When Cross got close to the body, he saw that Nichols, it was a woman. He didn't really know what it was, so he took his whip, because he was on his cart, and he like poked it, and he saw it was a woman.
Oh man, I really thought you were gonna say he just whipped it, like, because that would be so fucking funny. That was that thing.
Whoop. Out of my way.
Oh shit, that's a lady.
Who knows? He could have whipped it and just said I poked it. Didn't want anyone to know.
Poked it? It's fucking flat. It's flaccid, right?
No, they
it's
have like a long stick, and then there's the whip,
I was
right?
thinking like an Indiana Jones bullwhip.
Yeah, it's got the knot on the end. You can give it the old.
Gotcha.
This is like a horse cart ride one, you know?
They called it ye old tarp check.
Yeah, tarp. Yeah, so he noticed that it was a woman, and she's lying on her back with her eyes open. Her legs were straight, and her skirt was raised above her knees. Her left hand was stretched out, touching the gate of a stable entrance. Her brand new bonnet, she was so proud to show off, was lying next to her near lifeless body.
I was hoping you were gonna say it turned out to actually be a piece of tarp.
Yeah. I bet you it wasn't clean or nice anymore. As he was standing there over the body, staring at the body, another cart man named Robert Paul came passing by and noticed Cross, or Lechmere, whatever the fuck this guy's name is. Lechmere called Paul over, and they both walked toward the body, even closer. Lechmere
Gave it a pap smear.
Yeah, this is kind of Cross, or Lechmere, whatever the fuck this guy's name is, touched her face to see if she was dead or still warm to the touch. Paul said that he thought she was still unconscious. She's just unconscious, but they fucking knew she was dead. They were just wishful thinking or telling the cops that they're fucking dead.
Yeah, right. Because you know how it happened. He was just like, "Oh, what you doing, Cross?" He's like, "I think I found a dead body." And he's like, "Oh, did you whip it yet?" And they're like, "He's like, yeah, I whipped it twice. It didn't move." And they're like,
you-
"All right, let's go
Definitely
look together."
Are you
Did
sure
you
that's
whip
not
it
a
good?
tarp? Are you sure that's not a tarp?
Yeah. Yeah.
Few more
Here, let
whips.
me try with my whip. It's much harder.
Yeah, so the two men spectating say they pulled her down her dress to preserve her dignity. So before they went and ran away, they said, "Hey, this girl, if she's not dead, I'm covering her puss."
Thank God they preserved her dignity.
Yeah,
The dignity she held so near and dear in life.
yeah. Then the pair went looking for a police officer. They soon found a guy named PC Jonas Meisen. PC stands for police constable. Paul and Cross, or Lechmere, whatever the fuck that guy's name is, tell a police officer that they found someone either passed out or drunk on Bucks Row. PC Meisen goes to check out the situation, while the other two just continue back to work. They said, "Okay, bye." PC Meisen gets
And
there.
you whipped it, you said.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Yes, we whipped it."
Carry on. Yeah, so Meisen goes to check it out, but it's a fucking Bucks Row. It's super dark. You can't see shit. It's not like there's lamps everywhere. So he can't see anything. And then another police officer heard like the police whistle, because they'd whistle for help and shit like that. So another guy named John Neal approaches from the street on the opposite direction, and he had a lantern. They get close to the dead Nichols. And a third guy, John Thane, who was randomly walking nearby, shows up too. Constable Neil notices blood pooling around the neck of Nichols and yells out to Thane, "There's a woman with her throat cut. Run at once to Dr. Llewellyn."
Oh, dear Lord, do you have a whip?
Do you have a standard sized bullwhip? All we have is these cot whips and they're not doing the trick.
Someone help. Give us a whip.
So yeah, PC Neil sticks around. Thane runs to go get the doctor, Dr. Llewellyn, which I find a great name for a doctor. It doesn't sound real. It sounds like a romance novel doctor. And then Dr. Llewellyn unbuttoned his shirt.
do you read those?
Yes.
And proceeded to administer the injection.
Nice.
Nice for sure. Save that joke. Neil looks for blood, a blood trail. Like this girl couldn't have been dead here, so doesn't find anything. Neil looks for wagon tracks leading to the body. Didn't find any tracks of that nature.
You look for pecker tracks.
Yeah, fuck, he didn't think of that. God damn it.
This bonnet's got semen on it.
He just figured out that she must have been murdered right there. PC Thane comes back with Dr. Llewellyn at 4 a.m. The doctor examines the body at the scene, observing 2 deep knife wounds on Nichols' throat. Dr. Llewellyn pronounces her dead, and he said that Nichols was killed within the last 30 minutes or so. There's a crowd gathering around this scene right now. So doctor says, get her to the mortuary. I'll do a better examination. So they get some fucking workhouse people to go pick up bodies and bring them to the mortuary for them. It wasn't like it was like the police officers were like, I'll help. No, they're like, get the slaves. I mean, workhouse people. So they would bring them over. They get to the further examination. Llewellyn observed that Nichols had 2 slash wounds on her throat, like he previously thought at the crime scene. 1 slash was 4 inches, about an inch below the jaw, starting at the ear from the left to the right, indicating someone who was left-handed. The second slash was 8 inches long, about an inch below the first wound, and was so deep it went right down to the vertebrae.
That's a big gash.
Yeah, that's a huge gash. Llewellyn suggested the wounds were made by a long-bladed knife. So whoever did this, like, OJ'd the fuck out of this chick. They did find other wounds. Llewellyn was shocked, but there wasn't more blood at the scene because...
I hate to interrupt, but did they ever look into the background of the guy that invented the Pez dispenser?
Yeah, no, I think that was a guy named Charles Allen Lechmere, or Cross, or whatever the fuck his name is. Dr. Llewellyn was shocked that there wasn't more blood at the scene, but attributed that to the fact that the other wounds must have made post-mortem less, like she must have bled out so fast that because of all the extra stab wounds that are coming, there should have been more blood. So her vagina had been stabbed twice. Let's just start there. Stab vagina, stab.
More than twice, according to her husband.
Yeah, get out of my house. You're drunk again. The lower part of her abdomen was partly ripped open by a deep, jagged wound, causing her bowels to protrude. There were several other incisions inflicted on both sides of her abdomen that had been caused by the same long-bladed knife. No rhyme or reason to them, just a bunch of little stabs. Post-mortem, all the wounds that were inflicted with a downward stabbing motion, except for the slash of the throat. Dr. Llewellyn also suggested that whoever did this must have had some anatomical knowledge, because there's no internal organs were harmed with the cuts. So he was just like avoiding stabbing internal organs. On and near Bucks Row was in a panic state after Nichols' murder spread. People started to gather around Bucks Row, probably as a morbid curiosity. Police quickly interrogated any looky-loos and anyone who lived on Bucks Row or nearby Bucks Row. All the neighbors and bystanders were cleared as suspects after official inquest that went on after the next few days. The best that people like could be cleared, like police could only get so many people. It's like fucking shit tons of people just walking around homeless on the street. People in Whitechapel also just hated the cops. They're like the poor place. So like if you're ratting on people, they'd be like, you didn't want to talk to the police because you'd be fucking, it's like a little gangster's town. And if people got arrested in Whitechapel, it was someone you knew, the people in Whitechapel would like gather and throw bricks and steel and shit at the cops until they let the person go. Like it was that kind of neighborhood.
That's pretty cool. I do wish we had a little bit of that right now.
Whitechapel lives matter.
Yeah, you know how awesome it would be if like cops, like if all they had was like equal force to you? Oh my God, they'd never be able to do anything.
Yeah, they actually had less force.
It's the way it's supposed to be in my country.
I say there were only 600 police in the entire Whitechapel district. That's it. 78,000 people population, 600. That's not lots. They're all foot patrol. It's not like now where they all have cop cars and shit, right? You're just walking everywhere. Like 600 people is not a lot. You divide that into 4 shifts for people to be like, that's 150 people on the street at all times per shift. That's not lots.
They're all eating them itty bitty little fucking hamburgers. That's what's weird. That's a White Castle joke. Sorry.
Oh no, we got it.
Yeah. I just didn't want, treat some of my jokes are like a silent fart. If you don't let somebody know, they don't hear it.
These inquests I found were interesting too, because like if they couldn't solve anything right away, they just have like a weird police inquest into it the next couple days, like a weird trial every time. Like every one of these murders has an inquest right after. Many people had been up in those early morning hours, but no one heard any screams or saw anything suspicious. So that's probably because people in Whitechapel didn't talk to cops. So police started to interview just sex workers in that area, asking them if they knew anybody that could have committed these horrifying acts. And then this is when the police first heard of a man nicknamed by the local streetwalkers as the Leather Apron. That's the Jack the Ripper's original name, the Leather Apron.
It's a little bigger than a whip.
Yeah. According to some women that were interviewed, the Leather Apron was a man who had been terrorizing the local streetwalkers as of late. He would hold up the streetwalkers, beat the shit out of them, hold them up with knives, his fist, and then just steal all their money from the night. Like, fuck them, and then not pay them, steal all their money. Douchebag. He was a known problem. It's not like it was anything new. Everyone knew about him. Obviously, the man wore a leather apron, hence the nickname. Nichols' friend Emily Holland and ex-husband William identified her at the mortuary. Since the murders of Smith, Tabram, and Nichols happened within 5 months of each other, and since all 3 murders that happened within 300 yards of each other, the media lumped them together right away. Most of the media suggested that there must be a gang killing women in Whitechapel, especially since Smith told the officers that she'd been attacked by 3 men.
That's the gangbang.
The gangbang, the gangbanging gangbangers. Eesh. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Actually, I hate that. I just don't want a fucking gang of dudes coming into my house just fucking me. All of them.
The way I understood that was like a gang bang. So it's like a gang of dudes who go around and like rape dudes who participate in gang rape.
Oh,
right?
It depends how you take that, because I thought it was like gangbangers gangbanging people.
No, maybe it's just like factions of roving rapists, like so like Mad Max.
Little known historical fact is Whitehall was the original charter chapter of the Fistfuckers Convention.
Oh, Whitechapel
Cool.
was, eh? Yeah, that's an interesting fact. I would have never known. And you know what? I'm part of the fisting committee of the world, FIW, Fisting International World.
Is that like the Freemasons?
Except for way more secretive, and Justin might die for bringing it up. One of the papers, The Star, claimed it was a single killer on the loose, the Leather Apron. So I'm not sure. There's like papers and shit that say Leather Apron on the loose. I'm not sure they found out about Leather Apron, but they were for sure running stories about him. Probably the same. They probably found out the same way the police were, just talking to the sex workers on the street. Most of the Star articles, the first few days of the death of Nichols, involved women recounting what had happened to them when they had run into the Leather Apron. The Star even went as far as reporting that he carried around knives and his job was a slipper maker, but never actually made slippers, just robbed women by knife point at night, like stoking the fear, because obviously it's going to sell papers. The Star also reported, and I quote on this one, his name nobody knows, but all are united in a belief that he is a Jew or of Jewish parentage, his face being marked of a Hebrew type.
Ooh,
Oh,
there
boy.
it is.
Oh, boy.
Found it, Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the second on the list of the ones that I didn't name. You were curious. So that one's on me.
No, you tried real hard. You said all of the slurs. So I think that you good effort, man.
Thanks.
Whitechapel, I don't think I mentioned this. I kind of mentioned it. Whitechapel was very anti-Semitic in the late 1800s. There had been a huge migration of Jewish refugees into London in the early 1880s. They were running from persecution in Eastern Europe, and many of the refugees settled in Whitechapel. When the Star started reporting that Leather Apron had a Jew face, the anti-Semitism got even worse during that first week of September. Graffiti started going up, blaming Jews for a lot of bad things, even though the Jews probably did nothing. Or could have, but I mean, it just turned it into a Jew thing instead of just like, there's a murderer, it's a Jew murderer. Like, oh,
Wow. Are we really playing both sides on that one?
What do you mean?
Well, there were good people on both sides, right?
Yeah, even though they just probably did nothing. They could have, but probably not. But maybe.
Well, it could be a Jew, could be anyone. My point is they were just saying it was a Jew. Could have been anyone. Nobody fucking knows who did it.
Well,
was
I
Jew or
know. I
not.
think sometimes the semantics of the way that comes out is a little
Don't be anti-Semitic.
that too. Yeah, that's good advice.
It turns out the lead detective just had a speech impediment. And he said, "It could be Jew. It could be Jew. It could be Jew."
The lead detective was fucking Dracula.
Somebody bled this bitch out.
So yeah, after one stab wound. It's the count. 39 stab wounds.
It's an actual puppet, and they're like, "What? How did this guy get promoted?"
Fucking Muppet.
When he lifts the tarp and does the special stabs, he's cut Dracula.
So yeah, after the leather apron started getting after the leather apron, the Star started reporting a lot about the leather apron. Most media in the coming weeks would adopt the leather apron killer story. But I want you guys to understand, at this point, nobody actually knows anything. It's all fucking speculation by the media. It's pretty fucking crazy how much this got like the leather apron's coming to kill you. Like, wow. But funny enough, while all this is happening, the police already knew who the leather apron was. They had the identity of him. On September 7th, the police inspector Joseph Nelson stated in a report that, quote, the inquiry has revealed that the fact that a man named Jack Pizer, alias Leather Apron, has for some considerable period been in the habit of ill-using prostitutes in this and other parts of the metropolis, and careful search has been and is continued to be made to find this man in order that his movements may be accounted for. Although at present, there is no evidence whatsoever against him. Like, the police knew his name, but they couldn't find him. The reason for that, he knew his nickname was Leather Apron. And as soon as they started talking about Leather Apron being a suspect, like this is the last time anyone saw him. It was on September 2nd, a local sex worker run up to the patrolling police, pointing out a man she claimed to be the Leather Apron. So the officer came to ask the guy a few questions, and he bolts. The police chased him, but the potential Leather Apron escaped. Turns out this was Pizer, and after the foot chase with the officer, he went into hiding. He's like, fuck this. I saw my name in the paper. Cops are chasing me now. I'm out. While the massive hunt for Pizer is going on September 8th, a week after the murder of Nichols, the body of Annie Chapman is found near the steps to the doorway of the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street. Let's talk a little bit about Annie Chapman. Annie and her husband had divorced 4 years earlier after their 12-year-old died of meningitis. Annie and her husband had 3 children. The first was disabled and sent to live with the state. I saw somewhere that Annie actually had 8 children and only 3 survived.
So wait, what was the straw then when the 5th one died? How was that any different from
when they were babies? They died all the time.
4 previous
when
times?
they were kids back then, they died all the time. They were used to that. It was a 12-year-old. That's what got them. This kid made it past like the death years.
Really? I feel like that was so normal just for that to dissolve a marriage in the 1800s.
That's not what I was just trying to point out this.
Like,
I was trying to point out this.
Mailman missed us on one Tuesday. We won't get our mail until Wednesday. That just feels of the same gravity as your 12-year-old dying in 1880.
I don't know about baby, but this isn't the reason they broke up, really. It's just what the excuses are. She had a drinking problem. This is why most of her fucking kids died. Excessive drinking was also how her relationship deteriorated. Her husband kicked her out of their home.
Allegedly.
Not allegedly. He legitimately, he was a drunk too, though. That's the funny thing. But since she was a woman,
how did her drinking kill her kids?
Drinking while they're pregnant.
Oh, okay. I was just picturing like them being so sad that their mom was drinking that they killed themselves.
That's a fair point too. Maybe they all just like started drinking because mom didn't know how to.
No, they went to church and got cornholed by a priest and died of sea meningitis.
Oh.
My God, the road we traveled to get there.
I've never heard cornhole be used as an adverb. That's very interesting.
So I come from a previous generation where cornhole was an activity and a gangbang meant a good time had by everybody.
Nice.
Oh, I love playing cornhole.
A lot of people do.
That is isolated. I'm just saying. That will be isolated, and that will be my ringtone for the next little bit. Rick said he likes the cornhole again. All right. Annie moved to London to make money. What she would do to make money after she broke up, she got her spousal support too. Okay. Then she went to make money in London selling crocheting and selling plastic, like paper flowers that she would make.
she was selling crotch. They misspelled it.
Yeah, crotcheting. Yeah, Chapman moved to London. She was in a similar situation as Nichols, like just down fucking on her luck, still working, still getting a little bit of money, not enough to fucking do sex work, I don't think, but maybe. Her husband, who was a private coachman, was giving her spousal support, and she was living day by day at various lodging houses. So in 1886, her husband died, her ex-husband died, and couldn't provide the spousal support anymore. So Chapman was 45 years old at this time. She had honest work, but without the 10 shillings, she got double. She got 10 shillings a week. Her ex-husband gave her it was 10 shillings a month. She had abandoned her crochet and flour selling to get into a more stable and therefore more lucrative line of work, sex work. And this is how the old story goes. But Reuben Holt disputes this, claiming that Chapman was too sick to have been out in the streets and was simply begging for money, which I kind of agree with.
Crocheting and flowers. That's crotch and bloomers. That's code words. These are dog whistles for poon hounds in jolly old England.
Yeah, she sells flowers. Okay.
It does feel like a little bit of a stretch to say, like, I mean, because we are arguing like whether or not they were which I understand, like calling them prostitutes versus sex workers or whatever, but then also even labeling them that way versus them just being somebody who may have done that. It feels like this lady dedicated all of her time to exonerating these women of selling their bodies for money, which it also seems like back then wasn't necessarily the moral quandary that it is today.
Because
I feel like it's no longer a moral quandary, though. We've kind of
I've gone like full
around.
circle, which is nice, but like dubious.
I'm not saying the actual intent of this, actually, because she actually does address that. What she is trying to do with this, with her book, The Five, was talk about the actual victims. Because a lot of the times, Jack the Ripper, kill, 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 kill. Who's Jack the Ripper? So no one ever actually talks about who the victims were. And then Jack the Ripper becomes this like Dracula figure or like a spooky monster, when in reality, he was just a fucking sick psycho who killed actual people. No one associates the people anymore. We all think about Jack the Ripper being the scary monster. So she's trying to take
and then
that
just
back.
calling them prostitutes and writing it off. I get it.
What's the difference if they're poor, if they're prostitutes?
Well, back then it sounded like it was the same thing.
A lot of it was.
It's a matter of perspective.
They lived a lot of the same type of life, a prostitute and just a poor homeless old lady. You know what I mean? They all would have been the same kind of like, try and find my 4 shillings for tonight, or my 4 pence for tonight, try and find my 4 pence so I can sleep in my fucking coffin.
Well, you can just do 2 and you get the rope, which again, we agreed was the best value. So
That's true.
No, I think it just boils down to a matter of perspective. I mean, some people see a beautiful flower and some people just see a bulldog eating mayonnaise.
Fuck, that might be grosser than any of the murders you described later, Richard.
Pull up the video of eating a hot dog.
Does this mean I'm not invited next time?
Now you're here for both. Be gross, please. She didn't really put a big crusade on like making them not prostitutes, just actually giving them a name and saying this is their life. They weren't actually fucking, some of them were. Anyways, that's just I haven't read the book. I'm not gonna lie. I just fucking read a bunch about it. So I could be completely wrong, but I mean, there's so much to this. It's unreal.
Nobody had TV. Nobody knew how to read. Everybody was fucking.
Yeah, to a point, but I mean,
that's usually a good bet.
If you had money, you were riding around on a horse playing polo, or you're doing something else. If you're just poor as fuck, that's what you're doing for sure.
Oh, they were still fucking.
Oh yeah.
Who do you think who was fucking the poor prostitutes? People with money.
The guys who worked in the butcher shop, like on their way home to their wife. That's who was fucking the prostitutes.
Oh damn! So okay, hold on. Body odor and slime, smog, dirt, and blood. Fuck, dude. Like. We just keep adding layers of filth onto.
So then what? They would just like throw some gabagool at her and be like, this is enough? Or
he says, oh, this feels awful. Get it? OFFAL.
Oh, dear Lord.
Anyways, so Reuben Holt claims that Chapman was just sick. And it's true because Chapman was 47 years old when she was found dead. And when they did the autopsy on her, they said that her lungs and her brain were so deteriorated that she either had tuberculosis or syphilis. So that goddamn consumption, Poe killed her. That was my theory right there. Edgar Allan Poe, any consumption deaths, Edgar Allan Poe.
I refuse to believe that because he wouldn't be caught dead with a woman over the age of 13.
That's true.
That's 34 years over his prime, pal. All right.
That's true.
Edgar Allan Podophile. We all know that.
The day before Chapman's murder, she had just been discharged from the casual ward of the Whitechapel Infirmary, complaining to her friends that she was too sick to do anything.
The casual ward?
The casual ward of the Whitechapel Infirmary. Yeah, it's the
I've never heard casual ward.
Intense. Would be like emergency room or like a casual ward, like the place where you would go. That's not an emergency.
Oh, I thought it was just where you don't tie the back of your gown.
Yeah, no, it's
when you had casual 1800s wounds, like your jaw hanging off or missing all of your arms and legs.
I got consumption or something else. I don't know.
All right, that's just casual shit. Go in the back.
Yeah, you want to hear this? Is a great story. So she was in the infirmary because she'd gotten in a fight with another woman over a bar of soap and got her ass kicked for said soap.
You know what? Good for her, because I doubt she was probably among the 0.1% of people actually fighting to use soap.
Yeah, it's true. So it was probably worth fighting over. Actually, now that you say that, you just were like, I gotta suck a dick later. I need soap. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Although I don't think she was sucking any D's. So she was so hurt and sick that the doctor actually prescribed her some pain pills to manage the pain. On the night of her death, early September 8th, she left the boarding house at around 1 a.m. She had been drinking earlier in the night and she had been begging the manager to hold her room. She was like in there like, dude, just hold my room. I'll get the fucking money. And he's like, you have money for drink? Not for a bed, huh? No fucking way. Get out.
So she turned tables on him and said, hold my womb.
maybe he's like, oh, let me hold your womb. I don't know. Chapman told the manager that she'd be right back with the money. Just don't give away my bed. So he went, whatever. And then she left. As she was leaving, Chapman found an old envelope, tore off the end of it, and brought some of her pain pills with her in the corner of the envelope, and then set out into the night. Chapman was later seen by a woman named Elizabeth Long. Long saw Chapman with a man outside 29 Hanbury Street, who Long heard him ask Chapman, will you? To which she replied, yes. Long described a man as over 40 and a little taller than Chapman, with dark hair and foreign, shabby, genteel appearance. So he had a fucking Jew face. I'm trying to say the Jew thing again. Foreign, if you hear me say foreign, that just is the Whitechapel people just trying to say Jew. Like Jewish. Like they look like a Jew. Like, anyways, the racism. Chapman was supposedly heard, not seen, at 5:45 by a guy named Adam Kadosh. Kadosh lived next door at 27 Hanbury, to where the body was found. He walked into his backyard in the early morning at 5:45 to take a shit in the outhouse and pass by the fence that separated their properties. Kadosh heard low talking, but all he could hear and make out the woman say was no. And then something fell up against the fence and he didn't think of anything of it and went and took a shit. At about 6 a.m., Annie Chapman was found dead by John Davis, an elderly resident of 29 Hanbury, who lived there with his wife and kids. He was also leaving his house to take his morning shit and came upon the grisly scene. He calls out to three men, James Kent, James Green, and Henry Holland, to the street, telling them to find the police. They quickly ran to the divisional inspector, Joseph Lunas Chandler, calling out, another woman has been murdered!
Get your whips!
And look at the size of this shit!
Nichols' murder was still fresh on everyone's mind. Inspector Chandler runs to inspect the body and calls for more help. Police surgeons Dr. George Bagster Phillips and a few more officers arrive within minutes. Dr. Phillips declares Chapman dead at the scene. Chapman laid there dead, left arm over her left breast. Her legs were spread out with her feet flat on the ground, knees outward. She had her dress pulled up and a bloody handkerchief covering her neck. A lot of people say that she was wearing that like as a fashion thing. It's not like the Ripper put like a handkerchief around her neck. Her face was swollen and had bruising as if someone had held her face forcefully. Dr. Phillips quickly linked the murder of Nichols and Chapman, as they had many of the same characteristics. Like Nichols, Chapman had two parallel throat/spine wounds that were cut left to right, indicating someone was left-handed again. Her head was barely hanging on. This is probably where the face bruising came from. Someone was holding her chin while slitting her throat. In the official report, the wounds must have been done by a rather sharp, long, thin blade like Nichols. Her abdomen had been mutilated, not exactly like Nichols, but similar. Unlike Nichols, Chapman's intestines had been lifted out of the body and placed above the right shoulder of Chapman's corpse. Over the left part of Chapman was her stomach. Her other organs were still intact and relatively avoided. Her pelvic area was cut open. Her uterus and its appendages.
uterus?
I know, I got to say it right. Her uterus and its appendages, as well as the upper portion of the vagina and the posterior part of the bladder, had been entirely removed.
Can I use the name uterus appendages? Never mind.
Side note, the uterus, vag, and bladder have never been recovered, ever. This, like Nichols, also indicated that the killer had some anatomical knowledge. Without the anatomical knowledge of some sort, this would have taken someone an hour, at least. And we know that the murder happened between 15 minutes prior to her body being found. So,
Wow.
You know what? In all these serial killer things and all these mutilation murders you hear about, they always say somebody has an anatomical knowledge. I just think that's fucking stupid. All these people back then were like gutting fishes and killing animals and slaughtering pigs. And everybody knows where the poo hole is and the pee hole is and where the lungs are. I don't buy that as some
unless
kind of
you're Richard,
qualifier.
and then you don't know what a uterus is because you just thought it was a uterus.
Uterus.
Then you don't know.
Yeah, you uterus? Can I uterus?
I honestly don't think that's the problem of people not knowing anatomy. It's the time it took to get out a uterus without damaging anything else. Yes, it's easy
pretty efficient.
It's easy to understand where the stuff is, but to get everything out precisely like that in such a short frame time, and it's fucking dark. Think about how dark and fucking dank it is.
I mean,
he had a puddle of guts hanging over her left shoulder like a bagpipe. That doesn't sound precise.
And I would be more so impressive if he did that and then she lived, but he wasn't really concerned with how well she was going to do or recover from the procedure. So not really necessarily someone who knows their shit.
We'll talk about it more later with the other murders, but like these ones, the first couple, it looks like more precision and is done, and later it just gets crazy. So like, you guys might be right.
I'm mostly joking. 15 minutes is really impressive, and that was disgusting though.
Well, and what's crazy is I've got a dog with an IQ of 5 that can dissect a couch in 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. I got a dog that can fucking rip up some shit too. It was hard to figure out, and that's the other thing. 15 minutes might be a stretch too, because it was hard to figure out the time of death on Chapman because their insides were outside, and the only way they could determine time of death on people back then was body heat, like how hot they were. And if you're spread out over a big distance, you're going to cool down a lot quicker, right? So that's what made it hard. The doctor even said, like, this is an exact science. I don't fucking know. This is what I think. But it could have been a lot longer of a time, like maybe a half hour to a little bit longer, just because of the coolness of her body.
Yeah. I understand the concept of like the body temperature thing, but I really did want to just like for a minute, like pretend like they were just like super shallow and it was based on how hot they were. Like oh my God, she's so hot. Like she must have died so quick.
If it's truly just based off of temperature in 1880s, and it rains a shit ton in London, and obviously water conducts heat better than air. I mean, there's so many things that they've taken into account, and it sounds like they weren't even brushing their teeth. I don't know if I really believe all of this.
Well, this is the doctor. I don't know if the
fact.
I don't put it this way. Even the doctor said it's not exact science. He gave it like 15, 20 minutes max. But I mean, it could be more, it could be less. Who the fuck knows, really? Honestly, I'm just saying that. That's all. I agree. It could be amount of time.
Were we still measuring time by the travel of the sun?
No, they had everyone had watches and shit.
I think time was something to do with leeches, right?
Yeah, exactly. They
used leeches a lot back then.
Put a leech on your clock.
I think everybody just wanted part of the excitement. So every time they'd show up on scene, they'd be like, oh, he was just here.
It could be.
Yeah, I go with that.
Yeah. I think like, and this is all in all sincerity, like, as far as I know, like they still have like a really hard time with time of death stuff. Yep. Like if it's been so long, it's like no shot.
Even today, it's hard for sure. Even today, it's outrageously hard. But like within the longer time someone's been dead, the harder it is to pinpoint a time of death now. Right. Because whatever bacteria and shit starts to grow at a certain time, and other like rigor mortis sets in a certain amount of time.
Fucking weirdos that study bugs, they figure it out.
Yeah, with the larva, that's
like our previous guest's wife.
That's true.
Oh, I apologize to your previous guest's wife.
He
No,
studies.
she
She
studies
studies
spider
raping,
fucking.
raping,
Yeah,
raping
I'm sorry.
spiders. Yeah.
Yeah, raping, which is the most metal shit I've ever heard. I love that. for her.
Raping spiders?
Yeah, spiders.
Yeah, spiders that rape each other.
Fuck
Yeah.
yeah. Fuck those spiders.
I'm taking a stand
Well,
with the
I mean,
spiders.
honestly, at least they limit it to each other. Can you imagine a spider that rapes also? like
I
people?
used to find a spider attractive. Now I just think they're disgusting.
Yeah. So I only spiders allowed in this house. Respect consent, motherfucker.
All right.
On average, you get mouth fucked by a spider 13 times a year. So I don't know what the
Dude,
fuck
I
you're
don't even
talking
want to
about.
fucking hear that right now. Do you understand that we do have an actual spider problem in my house right now? We've been waking up with like the occasional bite.
So here's what you do. You find the biggest, baddest spider, you pick it up and fuck it, and this, okay, who's next?
Ooh, okay. So like prison rules. Got it.
I was gonna
Thank
say
you.
I think there's a thorax in your teeth. Chapman had
thanks.
other there was other differences.
I hope you get beard lice.
I have beard lice.
Joke's on you. I already have an infestation.
Wait till you talk about his gooch salamander.
Now, unlike the Nichols crime scene, Chapman's crime scene, there was blood everywhere. Some spurts were like 18 inches up into the air on the fucking all over the place, on the fence everywhere. Her face and hands were covered in blood, indicating she must have fought back. There was also like blood matted in her hair, mud matted in her hair. The fact that Dr. Phillips was saying that the killer probably had anatomical knowledge, the media heard this and they ran with it. So doctors were scary ass fucking people back in the 1880s. They weren't looked at like professionals they are now. They were looked at like fucking like weirdo creeps who like to poke around with dead bodies. You know what I mean? Like grave robbers and shit like that. So if a doctor did this, it wouldn't be surprising to the average Londoner, and it would be like a sensational story. Papers ran with that. Annie's crime scene, other than the blood spurts and all that stuff, by today's standards, there's lots of clues. By their standards of those days, not lots of clues. They did find a leather apron, a soaked leather apron nearby under a tap. Immediately, they thought the leather apron's at it again. But the apron belonged to a neighborhood boy, and it was outside drying after his mom washed it for him. So they a leather apron. It must be him. Like
Hold the fucking phone. What's a teenage kid or a little boy doing with a leather apron?
murdering. He's butchering. All the kids were put to work back in those days. Those kids.
All the kids
Oh.
are doing it.
Anatomical knowledge.
True. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He was killing. I mean, butchering. I mean, slaughterhousing. I mean,
Yeah,
sewing.
that little fucker killed that whore.
Was he a slave though? Because the slaves.
No, they
It's
had a
not like he
house.
chose that life.
This was like this was a working class neighborhood. This was a working class neighborhood. There were people that just lived in the houses. It's just a shitty place to live because hookers were bringing John's back behind your backyard and fucking, like, you know what I mean? Like that's the kind of neighborhood you lived in, like RJ's neighborhood.
You don't know shit about my neighborhood except all of the horrible things that happened that I've told you.
The police were gathering around Annie's body, and a gigantic crowd formed outside the crime scene just to get a look at the corpse. There were so many people that people who lived in the neighborhood were charging 2 pence to let people get a view of the corpse being wheeled out.
Do you just want to hear the song I wrote?
I don't know.
2 pence to look on me fence. Bring cash to stare at the gash.
That's extra. It's it's not even really a song. It's like a call.
Yeah, it's like a nice little poem.
Yeah. Oh.
Now, if we had RJ's mic cut back in and out again, and he started jumping in,
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah.
All right. So almost immediately the next day or late that night, the search for the leather apron heated up. And 2 days later, on September 10th, the police finally apprehend John Pizer, or Jack Pizer, aka the Leather Apron. He denies murdering the two ladies, but he does admit to knowing his nickname and his reputation about holding up street workers was true. He didn't kill anyone, though. He says, I beat the shit out of them and take all their money, but I haven't killed them. I'm not an asshole. They hold him overnight, but the next day the police let Pizer go because his alibi checked out, and the police couldn't prove that he had anything to do with these murders at all.
Then he had a vaccine to invent.
And I guess they searched his house. They didn't find any extra vagina or uterus anywhere. So they said, okay, you're good to go. He actually got very upset afterwards, after they cleared him, because his name was rubbed through the papers, and he actually sued the police, and he won. I don't know how much he won, but he definitely sued them.
His name was rubbed through the papers.
Yeah.
Let's ponder that.
Run through the papers. I say rubbed, run, whatever.
You said rubbed.
Did I? Whatever. Either way.
Right after you said that he didn't have any extra vagina.
Okay, here's my question though. Is it hard to hide your extra vagina?
Yeah.
God. Yes, if you stole one from a lady, I imagine it would be pretty hard.
I really don't think it's like that story of the dude not far from me who just had buckets of skin in his basement for the longest time.
Can you open that door behind you again? Because now I'm getting a little worried again. I want to know what's back there again.
A chest freezer full of vaginas. What do you think?
I'm just saying, I really feel like it probably isn't that hard to hide a couple human body parts if you know that the police are coming.
I love that he ignores all of the feedback on the things he's saying and just triples down. We're like, gee, Rick, you sound a little bit like a serial killer. And he's like, I'm just saying that it's really not difficult to, find someone, track them down, murder them, hide them in your crawl space that's behind you when you record a podcast. It can't be that difficult.
No, okay, what's the size of human anatomy? Let's say you just have like a pound of weed. You don't think you can fucking hide it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, and you're right. That's probably equitable. 1 vagina to 1 pound of weed. Yeah, those are the same.
I don't know. I don't know the ratios.
No, I like that one.
I'm not an expert in human anatomy. I don't cut it out. I just buy buckets of it and keep it in my basement.
That's a good exoneration at the end. Got it.
The police briefly suspected another man named Edward Stanley, but he's quickly eliminated. Stanley was staying at the same boarding house as Chapman, and the old envelope that Chapman tore the end off to make a makeshift pill bottle had belonged to him. So they thought, oh, he dropped pills beside her body, but it was just her thing.
Yeah, he dropped the pills inside her thing.
Yeah, inside of her envelope. That sounds dirty too.
Don't.
RJ just snaps back.
The police suspected another guy named Walter Piggott who had a suspicious cut on his hand.
Oh, it was definitely him. Do you hear that fucking name?
Walter Piggott. According to the lady that turned him in.
That motherfucker did it.
Yeah, according to the lady that turned him in, you're right. Piggott had blood all over himself the night of Chapman's murder. Piggott explained to the police that he was helping a woman having a seizure on the street that night, and she bit his hand down and it drew blood. That alibi checked out and Piggott was set free.
Wait. On the same night that this woman got her organs cut out, somebody else was just randomly having a seizure. He helped save her, and that all checked out?
Yes.
Hold on. We know the pure chaos that these people were living in. There were probably 350 people having seizures at the same time, with another 14 murders happening concurrently.
Seizures happen that often, you don't help people with them. It's like a broken down car. If you see one on the side of the road, you keep driving.
The fact that you said broken down car proves the reason that they probably helped, because they didn't even know what a car was.
No, but they knew what a seizure was. Enough to put your hand close enough to her mouth.
They didn't know what that was. They didn't know what these people aren't smart. That's probably the first time I ever saw, oh, this lady's shaking on the ground. It's like a vibrator for me. Let me get in there. Oh, she bit me. I better leave her alone.
You know what happens if somebody throws a seizure in your bathtub? It's a good time to do some laundry.
All right. The one-liners just never end.
Back then.
But yeah, no, so that checked out. So I don't know what to say. Like, the lady who had the seizure said,
listen, I'm just saying, the perfect person to know the human anatomy to cut out organs is the same person that knows how to stop a seizure. All I'm saying. If somebody's having a seizure, I'm not jumping in because I don't know what the fuck to do.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I know to put like a belt in their mouth or something, but that's usually my solution for every conflict I see on the street. So,
but that's not even that. It's like if people are having seizures, they think that they don't need a doctor; they need like a priest to exorcise the demon. That's what they, you know what I mean? It wouldn't be like what you think it is now. They're like, this person's been, the devil put this sickness in them. It's not sophisticated like now. They're still leeching people, for fuck's sake.
I mean, to be fair, you have RJ, upstate New York, London in the 1800s. It's really not that far off.
No, yeah, we live pretty horribly up here.
All right, so for the next couple weeks, the police are running down leads. They interview many people and get nowhere doing it. W.T. Steed, editor at the Pall Mall Gazette, published an article in a magazine that first suggested the killer could have been someone from the aristocratic class. And when he published this, the rich people fucking loved that they were suggested as one of their own could have been the one murdering the whores on Whitechapel. They fucking loved the naughtiness of it. Who was the guy? And it was part of all. It got huge real quick with the aristocrats because of this. The little guys love that too, because it's obviously the fucking rich people doing this. So these papers sold a shit ton.
Have you guys ever seen the movie The Hunt?
Is that the one where they pretend they're in like
Yes.
that's a newish Netflix thing where the girl actually
No, no, it was it was a theatrical movie, but then they got it canceled out of theaters for completely the wrong reasons. Nobody understood what it was. It's incredible. It's where like a bunch of like people online, you know, like they do like the whole like conspiracy shit. They talk about the elite getting together on a compound and hunting like regular ass like poor people and shit.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
So then I don't know if it's on Netflix. It might
yeah.
be, but it's not like a Netflix movie. They and then these people get canceled because of it, and they're like, you know what, fuck it, let's do it. And what ensues is one of the most hysterical fucking movies I've ever seen in my life. Like,
oh, it's great.
I have
Very
watched
good.
it multiple times.
It's great.
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of would like a nice like rich v poor type yearly Super Bowl thing. I think that would be
Oh yeah.
pretty
So
dope.
you want to do the purge? Yeah.
Yeah, but like in a contained way. You know what I mean? Like not in like the streets are anarchy, just like this one like slice of New Hampshire is anarchy for one night. And you have to be like drafted to it.
You have to be drafted.
No weapons,
Yeah.
no weapons, no protection, no prepping. It's you get drafted, you go into a room.
I'm in if I can bet on Barstool.
Like all of the resources you can gather, so the rich people are at a naturally unfair advantage. But
They
then
don't
like
have anatomical knowledge.
exactly.
So, but you just give them a Walmart. They
Not
get
like
a
those-
Walmart. So whatever's in the Walmart, anybody can use. Just throw them in a Walmart. I like this idea.
Well, that's an unfair advantage for poor people. Do you understand what our kind is able to create from what you can get in a Walmart?
We can find the stuff.
They
at
could
Walmart.
have drones, and it wouldn't match like a frying pan golf club. Anyway, sorry, that's all it made me think.
That's
of.
okay. Steve made this whole shit up because he was actually, well, I shouldn't say made it up. He was like investigating. It's funny that you bring this up. A year earlier or so, he was investigating the aristocratic class for having like a child sex ring. And he was exposing them in the newspapers.
We really do just go in circles as a society, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Fuck.
On September 27th, a couple weeks after the murder, a letter shows up at the Central News Agency in London. This letter back then was believed to be a first correspondence with the Ripper. Modern Ripperologists think this and the other letters I'll mention in a bit weren't written by the real killer at all. It was the letter that came in was dated September 25th. And after reading it, much discussion amongst the media, the letter made its way to Scotland Yard on the 29th. Should we publish this or should we give it to the police? They actually didn't publish it, which is shocking, but they actually brought it to the police. The discussion wasn't whether they should give it to the police because it was such a good scoop. The discussion was whether to take it seriously or not. That's the only reason they didn't take it seriously. Otherwise, if they would have taken it seriously at first, they would have probably printed it. But they're like, fuck it. This isn't really that serious. And this is how the letter goes. I'll read it to you. It's referred to now as the Dear Boss letter. So,
Dear Boss, I keep on hearing the police have caught me, but they won't fix me just yet. I have laughed when they look so clever and talk about being on the right track. That joke about Leather Apron gave me real fits. I am down on whores and I shan't quit ripping them until I do get buckled. Grand work the last job was. I gave the lady no time to squeal. How can they catch me now? I love my work and want to start again. You will soon hear of me with my funny little games. I have saved some of the proper red stuff in a ginger beer bottle over the last job to write with, but it went thick like glue and I can't use it. Red ink is fit enough, I hope. Ha ha! The next job
he put ha ha in there like it's a text message. I love that.
The next job I do, I shall clip the lady's ears off and send it to the police officers, just for jolly, wouldn't you? Keep this letter back till I do a bit more work, and then give it out straight. My knife's so nice and sharp, I want to get good work right away if I get a chance. Good luck, yours truly, Jack the Ripper. Don't mind me giving the trade name. P.S. Wasn't good enough to post this before, but I got all the red ink off my hands. Curse it, no luck yet. They say I'm a doctor now. Ha ha!
Another ha ha at the end. He gave himself the name Jack the Ripper, or whoever wrote this letter gave him the name Jack the Ripper. The next day, September 30th happens. This is a big day for the Ripper. Jack kills 2 people this night, both within a half hour of each other. They call this night the double event. The first that night is the third canonical. It's a lady named Elizabeth Stride, or as she was called by her friends, Long Liz. Now, I don't like to use the nicknames. I already said this, but Long Liz I'm using because they gave her the nickname Long Liz. One of two reasons. First reasons, either her last name was Stride, so they thought it was funny to call her Long Stride, you know? Or second reason, she was 5'5" and she was the tallest woman in all the land. So she's Long Liz. So I like Long Liz, so I might call her Long Liz a bunch.
She can hang all the Christmas lights.
She can reach the top of the tree. Almost 6 foot, Daddy. Long Lizzie was a Swede born in a small rural town of Torslanda, Sweden, in 1843 as Elizabeth Gustafsdotter.
Yeah, with the D-O-T-T.
That's right. She was the second of 4 farm children, meaning their parents were farmers and had kids to be helpers on the farm. She did servant work and sex work for her early life, unlike the other 2 killed who apparently started sex work later in life.
Yeah, and her kids were known with the surname Gislobber.
Gustafsdotter?
Cockleslobber.
Her first charge of prostitution is in 1865 at the age of 22. When she was 23 in 1866, she moved to London for either work or one of those I came to visit family, loved it so much I stayed kind of situations. It's not really clear. Over the next few years, she learns English and Yiddish. In 1869, Lizzie marries a guy 22 years older than her named Thomas Stride. They never had any kids, but what they did have was a coffee shop in East London. Stride was still a carpenter, but this was what they did together. He carpentered during the day, and she sold coffee in the day. And I know the Strides wanted to have kids, but the only time Lizzie got preggy, it was a stillborn. These two had a rocky relationship. I think the rockiness came from not having kids, because I know Thomas Stride wanted to have kids and she just couldn't do it. So she starts drinking heavily. You're going to notice that a lot of these people drink heavily. They finally broke up in 1877.
I support it.
Heavy drinking? Yeah, why not? Binge drinking. Do it, kids.
You got to, if you can't purge, if you don't binge.
That's true. They broke up in 1877, and then they get back together. They're one of those kind of people. Thomas sells the coffee shop and moves on with his life. With no coffee left to burn and nowhere to turn, Liz ends up moving into various boarding houses, just like the other girls, by 1882. She also returns to sex work on a casual basis. This is what I saw. She would only turn tricks if very desperate. Long Liz had a boyfriend she mooched off.
That's the type of work that only puts you in the casual infirmary, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I've untied me gown.
John Stride died in 1884 from tuberculosis. So, yeah, she lost her spousal support there. She got a new boyfriend. His name was Michael Kidney, which I find very funny because she was a drunk. Long Lizzie would borrow money from Kidney and sleep at his house. According to Kidney, Liz put strain on the relationship by always being hammered. From 1886 to 1888, Liz had been in front of a judge 8 times with charges of drunk and disorderly.
Damn.
On September 26, Kidney and Lizzie got into an argument, and she and Kidney separated. That'll be funnier later.
Oh.
She was back to living in the boarding houses. Instead of turning tricks, Liz decided to help with some of the housekeeping around the lodging house to earn some extra cash.
And she married Mr. Udis.
Maybe I should say, in addition to turning tricks, she was helping clean the lodging houses. On September 29th, Lizzie had earned a 6 cleaning a couple of rooms at the boarding house. She used this money to have a few drinks at the Queen's Head pub with one of her acquaintances from the lodging house, Elizabeth Tanner. According to Tanner, Long Liz was dressed up for the night on the town. Tanner wasn't up for the whole night out and went back to the lodging house. Lizzie decided to stay out. She was seen at 11 p.m. with a man who was described to have a dark mustache, wearing a morning suit and a bowler hat. I have no fucking clue what a morning suit is.
No, a morning suit is like a tuxedo with the long tails on the back.
Oh.
And it's usually got like a pinstripe.
Okay, cool. Jay Best, the man who had seen her, said that the man Liz was with seemed like a respectably dressed man and was rather astonished at the way he was going on at the woman. Long Liz was seen by a second eyewitness, William Marshall, with a man wearing a peaked cap, black coat, and dark pants. He was carrying a newspaper wrapped parcel as well. This was at 11:45. It seems like she was out working. That is not confirmed. The second eyewitness claims that Liz was kissing this decently dressed man. He was 5'7", had a dark complexion, and a very small mustache. He was in his late 20s, early 30s. He reportedly said to her, "You would say anything but your prayers." There's no haha on that one, but dirty talker.
This fucking guy talks in emoji.
The police constable, William Smith, saw a couple walking at about 12:30 a.m. while he was out on his regular patrols. In West Whitechapel, born and raised, I walked my beat like most of my days, chewing all max and walking like a tool. With a couple was walking, acting all cool. When a couple walked past, they looked normal and said, "So yeah, man, I forgot off back to beat for the rest of the night." I couldn't finish it, but I tried.
Is that Eminem's new album?
Yeah, they're doing nothing suspicious. So PC William Smith just kept walking. Sometime around 12:35 to 12:45, dock worker James Brown thinks he saw Long Lizzie talking to a man on the corner. He kind of pressed up against the wall, and James Brown said that he could hear her say, "Not tonight, maybe some other night." Ow! Not tonight. Maybe some other night. Not tonight. Anyways, the last person to see Long Lizzie was a man named Israel Schwartz. He was a recent Hungarian immigrant and spoke very little English. Schwartz said that he was walking around 12:45 and saw a man stop and talk to a woman in a gateway in front of a Jewish social club. He thinks the woman was Long Liz. The man was about 30 years old, 5'5", broad-shouldered with a fair complexion, dark hair, small mustache on his fat little face. Some speculate that this guy Schwartz saw was a man named Aaron Kuzminski, a Jewish barber from the neighborhood. Just remember that guy for our suspects, Aaron Kuzminski. Then the man took the woman and threw her to the street. Schwartz hears the woman scream 3 times, but not very loudly. He thinks he's seeing a domestic violence situation. And this is where Lizzie's body was found 15 minutes or so later near the Dutfields yard. Schwartz then says he crosses the street to stay out of it. As he crosses the street, Schwartz notices a second man standing there lighting his pipe. The second man yells out at Schwartz as he passes, "Lipski!" Now, Lipski is apparently a slur towards the Jews during that time, because about a year earlier, there was this murderer called Israel Lipski who killed another lady by pouring acid down her throat. So he was a famous murderer in Whitechapel from a year past.
I would think the slur would be foam throat.
It doesn't roll off the tongue. Literally, there's nothing left to roll off of. Schwartz claims that the second man started following him until eventually Schwartz loses him near the train station. The second guy was about 35 years old, 5'11", which I find fucking ginormous for the time. Light brown hair, a brown mustache, wearing a dark overcoat with old black felt hat. Schwartz found a police officer to report the incident to, and by the time old Lizzie's body was being discovered, there was already a lot of fanfare. Before I get into Lizzie's murder scene, I want to say the second man was cleared in the suspect category as police of the time ran down the guy and figured he was chasing Schwartz, So they found him, and he wouldn't have had time to actually murder, because by the time they reported it, the murder was already happening. So that guy's the 5'11" guy's just a racist.
In that time?
Well, no, they probably didn't care. They let him go. They were like, "Go be racist somewhere else." You know what I mean? They weren't arresting him. He just was.
Surprised he was racist.
This man makes people think that there might be two a rippers working with someone. This guy was the lookout guy, is the jacks of ripping. Anyways, I'm going to go with no. That guy was just probably standing there waiting to be racist. It's true. He's just standing there who can I accost tonight? Oh, a Jew.
That's probably the biggest hobby back then.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you do in your free time when you're not making gravel or sleeping against a rope? Oh, I stand around waiting to be racist. That tracks.
I can't wait.
Can I be racist now?
Yeah. Anywho, so at about 1 a.m., September 30th, they found old Long Liz lacerated and left lifeless. Louis Daimschultz, a longtime member of the Jewish Social Club, was riding his pony and cart through Dutfield's yard after a long day of selling jewelry.
I think it'd be cool if he rode his duck through pony yard.
That'd be cooler, yeah. In the dark, the pony shied left and refused to go forward. So Daimschutz took out his whip and whipped whatever was in front of him. No, he actually noticed a blockage in the road and lit a match.
I thought you were so serious. I was about to you're about to see my face light up.
Well, it's not much better. He lit a match and he thought it was a tarp. He's like, fuck, there's a tarp there. The only thing he didn't do was take a fucking whip. So he lit it up, and then he got a little closer and he noticed it like it was a woman. And then he thought like, holy fuck, there's a woman dead outside. My wife's in that social club that's right up the street. I'm going to check on her. So he runs there, checks on his wife. His wife's there. All right, she was okay. So then he tells all the people, there's a drunk lady or something out in the yard. Let's go check her out.
I've been around the horn. I've seen a lot of shit. I've never confused a dead or passed out woman for a tarp.
Well, what's funny is like I've done like, you ever do the opposite of that, like when you're driving and like there's like a bag like moving in the road.
Oh, for sure.
Like your heart skips.
Oh, I thought you meant like you're going down Harbor Freight and start fucking packages to find out it's a tarp, not a woman.
Maybe I don't have every single one of the memories I've ever had, but I feel strongly that I may not have done that.
So it's not important to have a photographic memory if you have a pornographic memory.
I will keep that in mind the next time I'm in a Harbor Freight.
Don't forget the free flashlight. I mean flashlight.
Dime Schutz runs into yells at everyone, there's a drunk lady outside. Let's go check her out. She might be dead. I don't know. So they bring a candle, they return to the scene. And after seeing that the woman was bleeding out, several club members ran off to report the body to officials. There was still blood running down her neck and onto the street.
Is this a bad time can I interject? I thought you were going to say they stuck the candle up her ass and then pulled it out to see how soft the wax was to determine the temperature and time of death.
No, to light it up like a jack-o'-lantern. It's just almost Halloween.
Quick, before someone takes it away. What a perfect decoration.
Light her up.
The patrons of the club start running down the street yelling murder like they would in those days. And then police finally went, fine, whatever. Constable PC Spooner came out to see what the commotion was about. PC Spooner lifted her head and saw that there was a big gash on her throat, 2 inches wide by 6 inches long. Blood was still spurting and she felt warm to the touch. 2 doctors arrive on the scene, 15, 20 minutes later. Dr. Frederick Blackwell, and then our buddy Bagster Phillips shows up again, who is the doctor for the Chapman scene. Both doctors were ordered to do an autopsy because the investigation had been criticized for not getting a second opinion on the original murders. So they both agree that the wound was made from left to right, like the other murders. The thing that makes Long Liz unique in the Canonical 5 is that she didn't have any mutilations on her body like the others. Her cause of death was determined by both doctors as loss of blood from near decapitation. Speculation has it the reason the Ripper didn't mutilate this time is because he was interrupted by the pony cart and ran off before he was caught. So because of the lack of mutilation, police didn't right away think Lizzie's murder was connected. They just thought it was a gang member stabbing a woman again. It wasn't until a few days later that they connected the dots. And I'll get there in a second. Before we get there, September 30th isn't over. The Ripper strikes again that night. 45 minutes after finding the body of Long Liz, the body of Catherine Eddowes was found in the nearby Mitre Square. Mitre Square was a 12-minute walk from where Long Liz's body was found. So, like you get there on foot. Let's just talk about her for a couple seconds. Catherine Eddowes was born in Grainsley Green, Wolverhampton, England. And I wrote Wolverhampton expecting that to be red underlined. No, it's not. That's a word. Wolverhampton, England, in 1842. She was the 6th of 12 children. Her parents were both dead of tuberculosis by the time she was 15. Goddamn Poe. Her and her younger siblings were put into an orphanage and they were all enrolled in school to learn a trade. She later marries an ex-soldier named Thomas Conway and has 3 children with him. Much like the other women, Eddowes had a drinking problem, and that ultimately resulted in her and Thomas breaking up. In 1880, Eddowes leaves her husband and 2 youngest children, so she abandons those 2. 1881, Eddowes had been living with a fruit salesman named John Kelly. That was her little boyfriend. They both met while living at a lodging house. She was still drinking heavily, being charged with at least 1 drunken disorderly that we know about in 1881. The manager of the boarding house, though, said that they were friends and she was rarely drinking to excess. But I'm going to go ahead and say that she probably was. That guy doesn't know everything. She engaged in casual prostitution, another casual prostitute, apparently.
Fruit salesman.
Yeah, fruit salesman. selling flowers and crocheting.
Bulldogs eating mayonnaise.
That honestly, if you could sell that though, I feel like that would probably be interesting to watch back in the 1800s. Mainly because I don't know if they even had mayonnaise back then.
She was known to do casual prostitution. This is what they say anyway. But she would also like bum money from her family, from her sisters and her daughters to pay for like bed and lodging houses.
For some people, prostitution is bum money.
Yeah. Eddowes' sex work was also disputed with Rubenhold. Eddowes was known to also earn a bit of money doing domestic work like sewing or cleaning for the burgeoning Jewish community developing in that area of London. In the summer, Eddowes and Kelly would even earn money picking hops in Kent. They would take trips to like the town over to go pick hops. Maybe she was doing sex work. Maybe she just had side jobs, whatever. At this point, like either way, it's not like if she was doing the sex work, it was because the fucking living situation was shitty. It's not like she was forced into it. She's like a 40-year-old lady. By September 29th, 1888, Eddowes had run out of money and she woke up that morning telling Kelly that she was going to go try and borrow some money from her daughter. So she left for her daughter's house by 2 p.m. and informed Kelly that she'd be back around 4 p.m. Eddowes never made it back to Kelly. That night, Kelly was like waiting around for her. By the time it was almost too late to get into a boarding house, he had to pawn his boots to get a place to sleep for the night. Pissed, probably. Like fucking Catherine drank away our money, guaranteed. So I'm guessing her daughter did give Eddowes the money because at 8:30 that night, she was taken to the police station for being passed out drunk on the pavement outside 29 Aldgate High Street. A crowd had formed around her, laughing and watching the display of drunkenness before she passed out. Just a fucking mess in the middle of the street at 8 o'clock. PC Louis Frederick and PC George Simmons brought her back to the Bishopsgate police station to sleep it off. When they asked her name, she replied, "Nothing," and passed out in the cell. Shortly after 12:30 p.m., Eddowes was awake and singing in her cell. She was known to be a jolly lady and singing was common around Catherine. Eddowes was asking to be released and the police wanted to see how sober she was. After about a half hour, around 1 a.m.
Can you suck this dick?
Yeah, that's probably what the deal was, honestly. About a half hour later, September 30th, she's released using the name Mary Ann Kelly, which is hilarious because Mary Ann Kelly or Mary Kelly is the name of the last victim. So she just randomly used a name that ended up being the name of the next person murdered.
That's like getting ALS and not knowing you had the name Lou Gehrig.
That's true. When she left Bishopsgate, she goes the opposite direction of her boarding house and is seen at 12:35 by 3 witnesses. They're all walking near Mitre Square on Duke Street, where they had just left the Imperial Club located on Duke Street. One of the 3 men, Joseph Lawend, said he saw Eddowes talking with a medium-built man with a mustache in his late 20s, early 30s. The man was around 5'7" and was wearing a loose-fitting black and white jacket, a gray cloth cap, and a reddish neckerchief. He looked like a sailor, apparently. I don't know. I guess sailors dressed like that. I don't know how you know someone looks like a sailor. Maybe the neckerchief gave it away. I don't know. She was facing the man, one hand on his chest in more of a flirty way than get the fuck away from me way. Lawende passed this encounter and never looked back. At 1:44 a.m., Eddowes' body was found by Constable Edward Watkins in the southwest corner of Mitre Square, which, if you look at the way it was positioned back in the day, it would have been the darkest corner of the square, unlit during the 1880 streets of Whitechapel. She was found laying on her back with her head resting in a coal hole, which I had to look that up. That's basically a mailbox for coal delivery. You just have like a hole outside every house and they just come by and shovel some coal into your fucking hole every day.
Wow.
Yeah, dude, again,
that's kind of still a thing in Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah.
They don't deliver it every day. But people have these like coal chutes. So when you order coal, you'll order like 1 or 2 tons at a time. They'll drive up and like hook up to your chute and just deliver it into your coal room. I have a coal room in my house.
Say fucking tons of coal?
Why are you using tons of coal?
I'm stuck on front hole, cornhole, coal hole.
I don't use my coal stove anymore, but a lot of homes around here are heated using coal.
Are you like steampunk? Have you gone full steampunk? Are you?
Yeah, he's steampunk.
I'm actually trying to get away from coal. It's because electricity is so expensive.
Trying to get away from coal.
If it wasn't for my goddamn locomotive, I'd be off of coal.
No, coal is used to heat houses like a lot.
Swipe left. I'm anti-coal hole.
In the fucking state of Pennsylvania and 1800s UK, apparently.
You're telling me you've never heard of somebody using coal?
No, not. I know they use coal to power plants, but not to fucking go in your house and shovel into a fucking coal oven.
Yeah, it's a very common thing.
I'm gonna try to start getting away from coal. I thought maybe I might start partaking in medicine. Maybe.
I'm done with these leeches too. Let's get them out of the house.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna get on the water grid. Maybe Tuesday or Wednesday.
All right. To be fair, my house is fitted for coal, and I have a coal stove, and I have coal to burn. I didn't burn it this last winter. I went all electric.
You went cold turkey.
Yeah.
Oh, Greta Thunberg loves you.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
Also, don't talk shit on the coal market. My parents sell coal.
Your parents would sell coal. I fucking knew Rick
oil
is like.
Bands. Of course they're coal bands.
Yeah. They
Of
have like.
course they're
He has
coal
like.
bands.
Fucking like they probably like have like polar bear for dinner on Sundays.
Hey, when they go to the bank to make a withdrawal, though, they say, "I'll be back, honey. I got to make a colostomy."
All right, so
and we're back to silent farts.
But when Rick was a kid, they would like invite like shitty poor orphans over for him to like play with, but like just like his play dates were just him making fun of like these like horribly abused poor kids.
I'm just imagining your Christmas as being very sad, always getting coal, and your parents are so excited, and you're like, but this is the bad one.
No, I mean, my parents don't exclusively sell coal. They just
they also deal in human blood,
illegal arms.
Chinese crypto, the slave trade,
various knives. So she's found her heads in the coal hole.
Poor Rick.
That's just a whole.
It's not even his fault. He had these evil rich parents. The only solace he has in life, the one thing he can hide away in, is a hot dog with peanut butter and ketchup on it. And we won't even let him have that.
I got that from my dad. My dad has been doing that his entire life too.
Your dad's lost all taste buds from working with coal for his whole life. It's all gone. He just tastes coal.
I guess.
The only thing worse than finding your head in a coal hole is find a coal in your head hole.
That's true. PC Watkins, after finding her, runs across Mitre Square, ran into Curly and Tong's warehouse, where he knew a retired policeman, George Morris, was working as a night watchman. Watkins begs for Morris's help. For God's sakes, man, come to my assistance. Here is another woman cut to pieces. Morrison came to see the situation, and as soon as he sees the body, he blows his police whistle furiously, trying to get all the police he could to assist. Another officer arrives in response to the whistle and summons local surgeon George William Sequeira. I don't know how to say names. The doctor's there about 1:55. The officer brought Dr. Sequeira to the darkest part of Mitre Square to show him the scene. The scene was a doozy. It just gets grosser. Even with the little time he had, Jack got to mutilate a lot more than he usually did. First of all, her throat had been slashed by a left-handed person like the others, right to the vertebrae like the others. Her abdomen was cut open like Nichols, except this time he made a weird art project out of her body. Her intestines were thrown over her shoulder, but the intestines were covered in fecal matter this time because he cut about 2 feet of the intestine and he placed them near the crook of her arm, which looks by design.
Anatomical knowledge. Oh my God.
Her right ear was cut all the way through, like Jack said he would do in the Dear Boss letter. The ear being mutilated was the reason the Dear Boss letter was taken seriously later. Over the reign of Jack the Ripper, there was over 600 letters sent to the police and media claiming to be the killer. Only a few were ever taken seriously, that being one of them. And that's why, because the ear was actually clipped off after he said he was going to do it. Edo's abdomen was cut open and her left kidney was removed along with her womb. There was an escalation with Edo's. Her face was mutilated, unlike the other girls. Both of her eyelids had been cut through vertically. There was a cut along her face from eye, nose, down to jaw. The tip of her nose was removed right down to the bone. Her mouth was slashed. Jack cut pieces of her cheek and peeled her face, creating a triangle flap that was about 1.5 inches wide. Then he took the newly removed kidney and uterus and left.
I'm really starting to dislike this guy.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. There are photos of her at the mortuary. They're gnarly. When they found her, she was still quite warm to the touch. Edo's murder happened between 1:30 and 1:45. So Jack only needed 15 minutes to do all this much damage. This is what they're saying. The fact that the Ripper was acting quickly and he was probably covered in Long Liz's blood when he encountered Edo's, which I find crazy. He was just, if he actually killed Long Liz, which I don't really know if he did. I'm kind of on the fence on that one. But if he did, he would have ran to that other Mitre Square, killed Edo's. He had to convince her to go to the dark part of the place to fuck her. So he would have been covered in blood. I just find that fucking crazy. He cornered it over there. Police inspector from the Bishopsgate Police Station, Edward Collard, orders an immediate search of the neighborhood. Officers start canvassing the neighbors. James McWilliam, the head of the city police detective department, arrives with a handful of other detectives. They all go search the nearby lodging houses and streets to lead up to them. With the quick response of the police and the questioning of any man in the vicinity, the police were no closer to finding Jack the Ripper. Also, the fact that he slipped past all the police boggles my mind too. Like, there would have been a shit ton of guys out that day. They were waiting now. They weren't fucking around. He would have been fucking covered in blood, carrying a kidney. You know, like, how the fuck did he get back? And no one saw anything. At least that's what they're saying. I know the people at Whitechapel hated the cops. They probably did. Somebody probably did see something, but they didn't think anything of it. Everyone was covered in blood. Remember, it's all sorts of butchers and shit here. So probably saw a bloody dude and they just went, meh, he's going home from work. He got home a little late. So after the examination of Edo's at the mortuary, it was found out that part of her apron had been cleanly cut off and taken by Jack. They didn't find any other clues though. And at about 3 a.m., about a 15-minute walk away, a blood-stained, shit-covered piece of Catherine's apron was found sitting in a passage of a doorway on Goulston Street in Whitechapel. The condition of the portion of the apron must show how Jack must have looked. Shit and blood covered like that. It just boggles my mind. I've seen two different speculations as to why Jack would have had taken the piece of the apron, either to wash the blade or to wash himself so he could get away. So he ripped the piece off so he could just wipe his face or something.
Is it possible he ate it and had an undiagnosed stomach issue?
Just
and then passed it, so
tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis.
That's exactly tuberculosis, yeah.
You know how to make a woman scream during sex?
I know you're gonna tell me.
Stab her. All right. What is it?
Stand up and wipe your dick on the drapes.
Ooh. I've heard a way worse version of that I'm not even going to say.
I like cats. I'm not going to tell this
story.
He must have been covered in blood anyways. That's what I'm saying. Anywho, above where they found the piece of the apron, above the archway of the doorway, there was a graffiti written in chalk, and it read,
"The Jews are men that will not be blamed for nothing."
And Jews is spelled Juwes.
Will be blamed for something is what the implication is there.
Exactly. It's the cheeky.
He's got anatomical knowledge and he's fucking retarded.
Yeah. The graffiti may or may not have had anything to do with the murders, because I was telling you earlier, a lot of graffiti started popping up after the first murder when they said it was a Jew, right? They said it was a Jewish person. But either way, it was washed off that night by the police because they thought it would probably start a riot in the Jewish community. It was right by a marketplace, a Jewish marketplace. If they saw that, they heard that bloody apron was right. Yeah, they didn't want, so they just washed it off. Took no pictures, didn't let any of the media get a picture, nothing. Just, it's gone. So was it even on there? I don't even know. Like, did the cops just say that was there? You know what I mean? Like, there's a couple people saw it, sure, and they reported it, cool. But like, I don't know, the anti-Semitism, you know, like, did they just make that up to make the story even worse? The only thing that the actual apron did show is give an idea of the direction that the killer had gone after the murder. But that was about it. It didn't help the case along at all. The next day on October 1st, the Central News Agency receives a postcard. The postcard is written in red ink, like the Dear Boss letter, and has what looks like a blood smear on the front of it. It says the following:
"I was not codding, dear old boss, when I gave you the tip. You'll hear about Saucy Jackie's work tomorrow. Double event this time. Number one squealed a bit, couldn't finish straight off. Had not time to get ears off for police. Thanks for keeping last letter back till I got to work again. Jack the Ripper.
This is called the Saucy Jackie postcard, which I find funny. Saucy Jack. This is when they start taking both those seriously, saying like these two are actually real. The other fucking million they started getting, no. So they actually print them. They actually print a bunch of them. I don't know if they do it here, if they do it later. I'm just going to say they did it here because I can't remember. But they like printed off giant copies of these letters and posted them around the city saying like, does anyone recognize this handwriting? But like, that's like just terrifying everyone. Everyone's like fucking so scared now. But they have all these like Saucy Jackie and the Dear Boss letter just everywhere. Like, thanks, idiots. And then the papers print them and everything. So Jack the Ripper is now gripping the community of Whitechapel, terrifying everyone. And it's the reason that they took the Saucy Jackie letter seriously was because he called it a double event. And the way like it came the next day, none of the stuff would have been released in the newspaper yet. So he must have known something about it. But we'll get into why we think it's a fake, or Ripperologists think it's not from the Ripper. Nowadays, the Saucy Jack postcard and the Dear Boss letter have been contested as actually written by the Ripper. A few people have claimed, including the police at the time, that the letter was written by a couple of journalists at the Star to, quote, keep the business alive. So the Saucy Jackie postcard had been lost to history. So no one knows where that actually is, just photos of it. So we can't investigate any more of it. The Dear Boss letter went missing from history as well. Just a photo of it. Until 1987, when it was returned with other Jack the Ripper evidence in a brown envelope anonymously.
I took some journalism classes in college. That's what we call the circulation jerk.
The handwriting on both the Dear Boss letter and the Saucy Jackie postcard match. Police do their inquest on the double event that the Saucy Jackie postcard talks about. Nothing really comes of it. Again, October 16th, 88, the chairman of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, George Lusk, receives a parcel. The Whitechapel Vigilance Committee was a group of local volunteers who patrolled the streets of Whitechapel District because they were unsatisfied with the police service they were receiving from the local detachment. This actually started after the second murder of Annie Chapman. It was about a month earlier at this point. So the vigilance committees were a common occurrence in London. It's not like this was a new thing they just came up with for Jack the Ripper. If they weren't satisfied with the police, they'd vigilante up and they go try and find them themselves.
Like neighborhood watch, right?
Essentially, but with like billy clubs and fucking hammers and shit, like go out on the streets looking for the guy. You know what I mean? It's not like they're not going to just call the police. They're going to go out and fucking police themselves. And I'm not trying to say that they had an adversarial relationship with the police either. Like they all got along. The police actually appreciated it. There wasn't enough guys. There's places in Whitechapel cops wouldn't walk by themselves. They'd have to go with 2 or 3 people. That's how scared they were. So they actually appreciated these guys going around. So the parcel received by Mr. Lusk was dated October 16th, and it contained 2 things. One was a letter, which is now called the From Hell letter, written in red ink. It reads.
I saw that movie.
It reads,
From Hell, Mr. Lusk.
Okay, and I'm going to tell you right now, if I'm reading this ridiculously, it's because there's a lot of spelling mistakes. It's really bad. It's poorly written. So.
From Hell, Mr. Lusk. Sore.
Not sir.
Sore. I send you half the kidney.
No, why?
Kidney. I took from one woman preserved it for you to their piece I fried and ate, and it was very nice.
With an S.
I may send you the bloody knife that took it out if you only wait a while longer. Signed, catch me when you can, Mr. Lusk. Mr. Lusk.
1, retarded. 2, anatomical knowledge.
Yeah, what he said, there's half a kidney, so he said he ate the other half, so now there's fucking cannibalism. The second thing in the parcel, first was the letter, second thing was a preserved half kidney. It was preserved in gin. Eddowes was missing a kidney. The From Hell letter has different handwriting than the other 2 letters. It's also written with spelling mistakes. The other 2 letters look like they're written by someone who actually could write. There's also a noticeable missing sign off of Jack the Ripper. Also, the letter writer promised to send the bloody knife eventually. Either way, I'm going to ask you, if you get this in the after all that's going on, okay, and you're the head of the vigilance committee, you get this parcel. What do you do?
I don't like to waste food, so I'll eat the other half of the kidney.
Good call.
See, my vote was furiously masturbate.
Good call, Ricky. I'm coming in with you with the real fucking answer. What has he got?
No, the catch me when you can. I'm just now I'm thinking about Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks, and I'm thinking there's some connection there.
Is one of them masturbating, the other eating a kidney?
Hey, I mean, there's always a tie-in with the celebrity and liking young women, and I mean, DiCaprio kind of does that.
Yeah, at least they're 20.
The ones that still have their kidneys.
Okay, so if you get a fucking kidney in the mail, I'm going to be serious for a second. You're not going to go like, well, I wonder if this is serious. Like, that's what Lust does. He's like, this isn't serious. I don't take this seriously at all. He thought the letter was a prank and the kidney was just that of a pig or something. So Lust didn't give up the evidence to the police till he brought the letter to the committee for discussion. They convinced him that he should probably go bring the letter and the kidney to police for examination, buddy. You should go check it out.
Wait, he kept it? He thought it was a pig's kidney and he kept it?
Yeah, he just tried to walk around. He's like, I'm going to bring his committee. Maybe they'll think it's real. I don't know what to think about this. He's an idiot.
All right, but that part's weirder. If you get a half a pig kidney in the mail and you're just like, that's not human, why would you keep it?
Why would you have like a shelf full of fraction organs?
And where did he keep that? Was it hidden from the police? Well,
next to his fleshlight.
It was pretty.
Made of real flesh.
Just no light. Just very cool. It was in a jar with alcohol. It was preserved like that. But anyways, the police photographed the letter and put it into evidence folder, the ever-growing Jack the Ripper file. The kidney is brought to Dr. Thomas Openshaw at the London Hospital, who confirms that it is from a human and it is a left kidney. The doctor also identifies the kidney as a ginny kidney, which was misunderstood as meaning there was evidence of alcohol abuse in the kidney as well. In reality, the doctor only meant that the kidney had been preserved in alcohol before delivery.
I thought it meant the guy pulled it out of somebody's virginity.
Yeah, maybe. The letter and kidney have since disappeared from evidence. It's 150 years ago. I don't really expect them to keep everything. Without the letter or kidney, there's no way to do any type of modern forensics on it. So that's the end of those two pieces of evidence. And the police investigate the From Hell letter, but nothing ever comes from it. The police also printed giant copies of the From Hell letter and posted all over the place to see if anyone would recognize the handwritings. This is why they got over 600 Jack the Ripper letters. There are letters sent everywhere too, not just the police, like to the fucking media, to the hotels, to stores, people fucking private houses. Like, we're going to come kill you, Jack the Ripper. Like, Jesus Christ. And then it's relatively quiet in Whitechapel for a few more weeks. Everyone starts to calm down a little bit. And that's until November 9th, 1988, when Jack strikes again. He kills a lady named Mary Jane Kelly. She was the younger of the victims. She's like 25. So there's not really much known about her younger life per se. She's the most mysterious, but she's also the most studied. Do you know stuff from her last month that can be corroborated? Like, Kelly was a drunk, like all of them so far. Quiet and affable when she was sober, angry and abusive when she was drinking. Her early life, though, it was hard to pin down. A lot of what we know about Mary Kelly's early life was relayed to police by her most recent boyfriend, Joseph Barnett. None of the info Barnett brought to the police can be corroborated at all, so there's no documenting evidence to back any of it up, but here it is. Mary Jane Kelly had many aliases, including Mary Jeanette Kelly, Fair Emma, Ginger, Dark Mary, or Black Mary. She was about 25 years old when she was murdered. She was considered very good looking by most people. It's not like the other ones. She was very, very good looking by everyone who spoke about her. She was born in 1863 in Limerick, Ireland. Her father was an iron worker by the name of John Kelly, and what her mother did is unknown. When Kelly was 16, she got married, but her first husband died in a mining accident. She moved to Cardiff for a time, and that's where she got into prostitution. This time it's confirmed Kelly was definitely a prostitute. Whether she was trafficked into London from Ireland or not is up for debate. She ends up in London by 1884, where she gets to work in an upscale brothel in the West End, I believe. Kelly had to move to the lower class street worker in the East End after some sort of. They were saying that she was kind of getting too close to one of her Johns in the West Side, and then the wife found out, and they kind of like banished her from being like, "You're now a low life hooker. Get to the shitty hooker side, you charlatan or you Charlotte."
She got demoted.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically what it sounds like. I don't really, it's pretty unclear as to why, but she had to move from one side to the other. Apparently didn't have contact with her family at all, but I've also seen it written that she would get letters from her parents from time to time. Once Kelly moved to the East End, she started drinking heavily. That's where she probably got depressed. Mary Jane Kelly didn't live in boarding houses for very long. That's another thing about her. She did live there for a short period, but she met Barnett at a boarding house, actually, but they got their own place after John got a job. They got a little apartment on Dorset Street called 13 Miller's Court. It was a shithole, but it's better than having to live in the little coffins. It was a 12 square foot single room. All windows were boarded up. The door was padlocked from the inside, but most times it wasn't kept on. In fact, Kelly lost her key and locked the door by putting her hand into the broken window and locking it from the inside, from the outside. She fucking locked herself out one time, so she never locked it again. It was always just
Nice.
broken window.
12 square feet?
12 square feet, yeah.
It's like 3x4, right?
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little fucking shit box.
Yeah. But you stand in that?
Bed, a shitter, and a sink. There's a least place to take a shit, you know?
12 square feet? Jesus.
And the door would like bang in, like the fireplace was across the doorway, and there was a table that every time you open up the door, the table would bang the table. Like that's how small.
I don't think the word across can exist in a living
Yeah,
quarters
exactly.
like that. Nothing's across from anything.
Yeah, if you can reach both sides with your wingspan, there's no across. Barnett paid for this. He got a job as a fish porter, just unloading boxes of fish at the dock. And Kelly decided to quit the sex trade. When Barnett lost his job, Kelly went right back into the profession, and she spent most of her time doing prostitution again, or sex work, or whatever you want to call it. Soon after restarting, she wanted to let another friend who was also a sex worker move into the 12 square foot apartment with her. She would leave for the day. This other girl would bang during the day, and then the other girl would leave for the night, and she would bang at night. So they could use double the profit of this one little room. Well, John's still fucking living there, and he's like, no fucking way. Are you kidding me? I don't even want you to be a sex worker. Now you're bringing another one in here. So he left her. They'd been dating for about a year and 8 months. Barnett never moved back in with Kelly, but they did visit from time to time. They were still remained friends. So he did visit her the night before the murder. He didn't stay long and left around 8 p.m. From 8 p.m. on November 8th until her body is found on November 9th are largely unknown. We do know a few things. Mary Kelly was seen by her neighbor, Mary Ann Cox, at 11:45. Kelly was with a man. The man was stout, ginger, aged approximately in his mid-30s. He was wearing a bowler hat and had a thick mustache, blotches on his face, and was carrying a can of beer. Two ladies exchanged good nights, and Kelly told Cox that she would have herself a song. Mary Kelly was known for singing quite often, and by quite often, I mean singing late at night. Cox used to get super annoyed by her because she wouldn't shut the fuck up at late night, just singing her Irish limericks, and she would tell her to shut the fuck up a lot of the time. So according to Cox, Kelly didn't stop singing until like 1 a.m. She is next seen at 2 a.m. Kelly was out on the street and ran into her friend George Hutchinson. She asked him for a sixpence, which he didn't have to give her. So then she keeps walking and is stopped by a man who she also spoke with. George reports this man as being of Jewish appearance, aged in his mid-30s. This is the guy people often think is Jack the Ripper. He's also carrying a small package, and he had a handlebar mustache. Wait, a handlebar mustache? That's what it says. So cool. He had a goat skin coat and was wearing a gold chain with a large seal and a red stone hanging from it. I don't know much I believe that one. There's no evidence that Hutchinson went into her apartment with her. 4 a.m. on the morning of November 9th, two neighbors of Kelly claimed they heard a faint cry of, "Oh, murder." They didn't say anything because the cries of murder were very common, like I said. So the two neighbors ignored the cry. At 10:45 a.m., Kelly's landlord, John McCarthy, I'm looking at you, RJ, John McCarthy, sends his assistant, Thomas.
Look, man, we all got relatives that have been involved in Jack the Ripper. Some of us have shitty landlords for uncles. Others of us had our mom's intestines draped over fucking shoulders. I mean, some of us get it worse than others.
Some of us have a uterus in a jar in the door behind us right now. Who knows who we are?
That too. Some of us might actually be Jack the Ripper because we're an undead, forever living vampire.
I mean, let's not berate our guests. All right.
All right. So 10:45 a.m. Kelly's landlord, John McCarthy, sends his assistant, Thomas Indian Harry Boyer. I don't know why they call him Indian Harry, but they do, to collect rent from Mary Kelly. She's 6 weeks behind on payments. When Boyer knocked on the door, there was no response. Boyer then looks inside the house, pushing the curtains aside from the broken window that was beside the door, and sees blood everywhere. Now, this one's a little different for Jack. He killed inside, and he killed a girl in her 20s. So this gets a little fucking crazy. This is the craziest one. So soon after seeing the blood, Boyer sees Kelly's body and runs back to McCarthy to report what he saw. McCarthy runs up to check the room like, oh, Boyer, Indian Harry's lying. I got to go check. Then he goes, oh, shit, he's not lying. So then he yells at Boyer, go get the police, and runs down to the police station as fast as he could. This reminds me of the kids at the golf course that they go see the attendant at the park. And he's like, you kids are lying. There's no dead body at the golf course. Then he goes and checks. Okay, there's a dead body at the golf course. He found an inspector named Walter Speck and told him of the scene. Boyer brought Speck and Dr. George Bagster Phillips to the body. Bagster's back again.
Speck? Like Richard Speck?
Yep. Walter Speck this time.
Did you ever see Richard Speck's tits?
I did. I'm disgusted by the whole
Breathtaking.
thing. Breathtaking because
Okay,
I'm gasping for fucking air because I almost puked.
I meant nauseating.
You're probably right. By this time, the news of the new Ripter victim spread faster than Mary Kelly looking for a sixpence. Police kept people out of the actual apartment, so the scene was preserved pretty good, which is actually pretty good for them. No one entered the room for 2 hours because they were sitting there waiting for bloodhounds that the Metro Police had put on commission until Ripper killed again, and then they could like chase him down. But it was like a month since the last killing, and the guy that had the bloodhounds was like sick of waiting. He just went home 200 miles away. He just brought his dogs home, didn't tell anyone. So they sat there outside the door for like 2 hours. Just like, where's the doggies? They're not coming.
They're taking this bloodhound shit serious.
Oh yeah, they used to do that shit all the time.
Bloodhound searching for a poonhound.
So they enter the apartment at about 1:30. They actually get a professional crime scene photographers on site and took some pictures. These crime scene photos are gruesome, and they are the first crime scene photos ever taken in England. After the photos, Kelly's body was sent to the mortuary for autopsy. Kelly, like I said, is the worst of the canonical five. The Ripper got to take his time and have some fun. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's because he was inside. Maybe it's because he had time. Maybe it's a combo of both, and the fact that he was frustrated because he had blue balls after getting fucking almost busted after a couple times. Every time he tried to kill someone walks up. Maybe it's just an escalation, but it's fucking gross. So the autopsy of Mary Kelly took 2.5 hours, and Dr. Phillips got another doctor to assist, Dr. Thomas Bond.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. 2.5 hours when it was half done.
It's already open for me. Exactly. That's how much it's hard for that. They couldn't even put together what happened first. They just had to like, this is what happened. So they put the time of her death at about 12 hours before the autopsy. Most of the mutilations from the previous bodies took less than a half hour. This time, Phillips estimated that the mutilations took approximately 2 hours to complete. First things first, the Ripper killed her by slashing her throat by a left-handed person. The murder weapon was a long knife, about 6 inches long, 1 inch wide, like the rest of them. After Kelly died, that's when the real fun started for the Ripper. He's a product killer, not a process killer. He just likes to fuck with the bodies after. He's a weirdo like that. When they found her, she was laying in the middle of her bed with her head turned to whatever was left of her left cheek. Her face was a mess. It was hacked to the point where it almost was unrecognizable. Her nose, cheek, eyebrows, and ears were partially removed with gashes everywhere. Her lips were cut with gashes from the lips down to the chin. Her head was turned to the side because he cut all the way down right to the spine again. Her arms were mutilated by several jagged wounds. Her left arm was close to the body, bent at the elbow from her forearm laying across her abdomen. Her right arm was laying on the mattress kind of away from her with her fingers clenched. Both arms and forearms had basically been skinned. Her legs were spread wide apart. And what was left of her legs anyway, her right thigh was skinned to the bone. Her right butt cheek was like missing partially. Her left thigh was also stripped of its skin and muscles. Her left calf had a long gash going from the knee to 5 inches above the left ankle.
Did you just say this murder was half-assed?
Yeah. The whole surface of her abdomen and thighs were gone. All the way from the bottom of her rib cage to the coastal arch down the pubic area, the skin was torn downwards, leaving 3 big flaps, just like completely removed. All of her insides were outside in different spots. Her spleen was by the left side of her body. Her thighs were on the table. Her breasts were cut off with circular incisions. One was placed under her head with her uterus and kidneys. The other breast was by her right foot. Her liver was at her feet. Her intestines were by the right side, and her spleen was by the left side of her body. It was almost like the Ripper spread her legs, ripped her open like the hood of a car, and just kept like throwing parts over top of his shoulder until he found the broken one. Her chest was cut open between her ribs, and you could see the contents through the rib cage like shutters. The right lung had sustained damage, and the bottom part being broken and torn away. Her left lung was left unharmed. Her stomach was intact and full of half-digested fish and potatoes. Her heart was missing completely. Because of how messy Mary Kelly's murder was, Phillips suggested that whoever murdered her probably didn't have any anatomical knowledge. It was just torn apart, ripped to shreds. This was a change about what we were saying of the previous victims. On the next day, November 10th, Dr. Bond wrote a report officially linking Kelly's murder with the other 4. And he also wrote a profile for Jack the Ripper. Dr. Bond said that Jack would have been a person of solidarity, eccentric, and was the subject of periodic attacks of homicidal and erotic mania.
Yeah, he was a little eccentric. You're right.
Solidarity?
I find this guy is like in Dr. Bond's interesting because he's like the first guy to ever like profile anyone.
Is that who Johnny Depp was in the movie?
I can't remember who Johnny Depp was in the movie. He's
Me neither. I'm
I'd have to rewatch
pretty
it.
sure I saw it when I was 9.
Yeah, I was very young. I forget who Johnny Depp was. I'll answer that next episode. Jack must have been in an extreme state of satyrasis, which is just a word for man nymphomania when he performed the mutilations. So Dr. Bond is sometimes considered the grandfather of criminal profiling because of the work on the Ripper. The same day, the commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Sir Charles Warren, offers a pardon to anyone who knows anything about Jack the Ripper, except for, of course, if you are Jack the Ripper. So he's like throwing it out there for anyone.
That'd be so funny. He was like, darn. Got me with that one.
Yeah, I
He almost found the
confessed.
loophole.
Exactly. Yeah. The police were on the hunt for the Ripper, and they accused the regular suspects. The first person for Mary Kelly was Joseph Barnett. He was cleared by investigation. That's the boyfriend, though. As usual, there was an inquest into the murder of Kelly. Started a few days later. Nothing comes of the inquest. Then the canonical murderers stop. After 6 months of no murders with the same MO, the case goes cold, and Metro Police start working on other cases. Now, there are a few other murders that aren't considered canon that happened after Mary Kelly's death. Some researchers list these 4 murders into the camp of Jack. The first of the murders that isn't considered canon is one called of a lady named Rose Milet. She's 26 years old. She was found strangled on December 20th, 1988. There was no signs of struggle, but the way her strangulation marks were on her head, on her neck, the inquest called her death a murder. It had been a month and a week since the last Ripper murder, so I think this is why Milet gets dumped into the pile. She didn't even have any of the same shit, so no. People were just bored and wanted more Jack the Ripper. The next murder, the non-canonical one, is plausible for me, is that of Alice Mackenzie. She was found dead on July 17th, 1889 in Castle Alley, Whitechapel. She had 2 stab wounds to the neck. She was bruised and cut all over her body. She also had a 7-inch long superficial wound extending from the left breast to her navel. Thomas Bond thought this to be a Ripper murder, while our other doctor, Mr. Bagwell, Phillips, thought otherwise. Phillips thought this murder was a copycat of the Ripper, which it could be. The next one is the Pinchin Street torso. It's also attributed to the Ripper. A headless, legless body found of an unidentified woman between the ages of 30 and 40 was found on September 10th, 1889. What was left of her was left under a railway arch. Her abdomen was mutilated extensively, but interestingly enough, her genitals were not wounded at all or taken apart. I think this one, just because the brutality of it, puts it in with Jack the Ripper. I kind of maybe think this one might be an escalation, though. We'll get into it in the suspects. The last victim that's non-canon was discovered a few years later on February 13th, 1891. That's right, a few years later. A 25-year-old sex worker named Frances Coles was found laying beneath a railway arch at the Swallow Gardens, Whitechapel. Her throat had been deeply cut in a sawing motion, but her body was not mutilated. The lack of mutilation is attributed to the fact that the police interrupted the Ripper. That's why the police believe this murder was done by Jack. A 53-year-old man named James Thomas Sadler was seen with Coles that evening. Police arrested Sadler and charged him with the murder of Coles. There was a time where they thought Sadler was the Ripper. He eventually got let go because there wasn't enough evidence to convict Sadler of the murder.
They should have made him spell the word preservation.
Just spell it.
I just think we're talking about all these suspected women of the night in Whitechapel, and we're just going to let that whole Swallow Gardens blow by.
I'm just going to let it blow by. Usually I dodge the blows. This brings us to theories. The story's been studied so much over the years, still referenced to pop culture this day. There have been thousands of movies made, articles written, books published, and rumors told about the identity of the world's most unsolved murder case. Yeah, I've seen reports that there's over 200 suspects in this case. I'm going to go over many of the big ones, the funny ones, the stupid ones, the mystical ones. There's suspects from around the world, all different walks of life, all different career paths, all the way from cart driver to wig maker. Famous people, butchers, tailors, pimps. There's even suspects that have ties all the way up to the royal family. But you'll have to wait till next episode because this is where I am leaving it.
Oh, I thought we were going to take like a 5-minute break and go to midnight.
I'm just going to jump in and say I know it's not a tailor because he would have been Jack the Zipper.
I will say, just on a closing note from me, if you care.
I do.
The thing that I find most interesting about the way that he treated all of his victims, like just like the sheer brutality of it and how like violent and disrespectful he was, is that I would still vastly prefer that to living in 1800s England.
Yeah, like you said, his angel of mercy fucking theory. That's honestly, you never know with some fucking crazy person. They might think they're doing them a favor. You know what I mean? Like, I get to have my fun. You get to have your fun. What's the problem here? Some fucking warped mind. I see that being something. So you never fucking know. There could have been some guy who's just like, I'm helping.
Or maybe, you know, like you're one of those women and, you know, you've sucked your fourth filthy smog or blood-covered dick of the night for, you know, 2 pence, and you're leaning against a rope in one of those houses and you're like, damn, if only someone would come and saw my neck off to end this misery. And then there he is and swoops in.
Just like that, I'm absolved.
See?
Yeah, and I just want to say I too learned a lot about RJ tonight, so thank you for that.
That I have a very low tolerance, and I'm very, very comfortable with my creature comforts that I have. There's no way I would go back to that. I don't even want to be without texting, much less sleeping in a fucking coffin bed. They call it a coffin bed.
Letting a spider crawl down and suck your dick is not a creature comfort.
Hey, I don't bust up on your fucking routines. Don't involve yourself in mine.
Yeah, but like, I don't even want to like imagine having to like crush bones and just like, I want to be the bone guy for the marrow. Like, fuck, man, there's so much fucked up shit going on at this time.
Yeah,
right?
just like, okay, do I go to work for shitty bread and a horrible pile of likely shit covered hay to sleep in, or do I get my intestines gored out of me and draped over my back like what I can pretend is a pretty shawl? And I think I'm gonna go with every time.
Oh man, thanks for that. That was a lot of fun, but I'm not coming back. That's way too long.
Okay, well, fuck you too then.
I just watched Private Dicks, and I think RJ's the funniest.
What? Come on.
Hey there, all you private dickheads. That's probably not the name we're gonna stick with. Anyways, RJ here. I am here to tell you thank you for listening to another episode of Private Dicks. If you liked what you heard, go on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere they take your reviews, drop us 5 stars, say something nice. Also, what you just heard was from last season. If you want current episodes as they're dropped, head on over to patreon.com. and search up Unethical Podcast. That's our mother podcast. I was not aware Private Dicks was a spinoff. I'm going to renegotiate my contract. On Patreon is a full 16-episode season more of Private Dicks, uncut videos of each episode, and many more things are getting added all the time. You can also find all of Unethical's content on there, so go listen to that. And if you're already a patron, fuck yeah, dude. You're the best.